I need you more. I need you more. I need you more.
Hey, let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Good evening and welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, welcoming you back for more Starfinder Second Edition class review. We had some crazy support and turnout for this brand new game from Paizo Publishing. We looked at two of the classes just a couple days ago. We looked at the Witch Warper and we looked at the Solarian, both really solid. Go ahead and check that out on our site in our live tab if you haven't missed those. But we had a lot of support. So tonight we are back. We're going to do two more classes with our stream override. Normally we do a Thursday night stream. We talk about anything and everything. Chances are probably pretty good we would have been talking about Daggerheart tonight, but instead, because of the tip goal, stream chat goal, we are going to be talking instead about two more classes. We're going to be talking about the Operative and the Envoy. So as we kind of look across the classes in Daggerheart, we could see that there are a core of 6 classes that kind of sort of roughly correspond to kind of sort of roughly the 6 attributes. We saw that the Solarian has a primary stat of strength. We saw that the Witch Warper had a primary stat of either intelligence or charisma. But tonight, I'm sure we are going to be looking at a class in the form of the Envoy, which is kind of like a non-magical bard, who is going to be charisma-based. And then, of course, we're going to be looking at the Operative, who is, of course, our sort of rogue analog in this sci-fi space and will sort of be our primary dexterity class. So that's what we're going to be looking at tonight. We're going to be going through these 2 classes. We're going to be breaking them down. We're going to be taking a look at their core chassis, which is to say to look at their primary class features. What do they get in terms of proficiencies, scaling, just to understand where they fit as a role in the context of the Pathfinder/Starfinder 2 environment. We're also going to take a look at what unique class mechanics each of these classes have. One of the things that we really saw with the first 2 classes is that each class kind of had its own little mini game or mini subsystem. Now, I thought that the Solarian and the Witch Warper were more complicated. And that's not to say that they're worse or bad. Complication isn't always a bad thing. Certainly, they were more interesting and had a lot of little fun little widgets and dials and fidgety things to fidget with, which I think is cool. But not everybody wants to play around, wants to have that kind of level of engagement. So it'll be interesting to see where the Operative and the Envoy fall on the spectrum of complexity or depth. Additionally, we'll take a look at some of the class feats. We've looked at the first 2 levels of class feats just to really get a sense of where does this class start off and where does it go from there. And then we usually take a look at a couple of additional ones that stand out or that the chat thinks are really fun or neat as we kind of go through the 4 through 20, and we'll typically take a look at the level 20 feats just to get an idea of, hey, what is this class's sort of capstone ability? What can they really show off with at the end of the game as sort of a fun way of saying, hey, campaign well played, have a lot of fun. Keithor is so depressed that they are watching Starfinder 2 content. Why, Keithor? Wait, I don't understand, Keithor. Is watching Starfinder 2 content depressing, or you being depressed makes you want to watch Starfinder 2 content? Why? I think Starfinder 2 is neat. So without any further gilding the lily and with no more ado, let's get into Starfinder. Keithor says Daggerheart. Got it. We don't know anything about Daggerheart here. This is Starfinder week. So again, we looked at the Solarian and we looked at the Witch Warper last time. So today we're going to start off with the Operative. The Operative brings precision and tactical training to any situation. In battle, they use the aim action to reduce enemy cover and deal extra precision damage. Some operatives are snipers, shooting high-caliber rifles. Others are skirmishers who fight with pistols or light melee weapons. And some are smooth infiltrators or cunning spies who only draw their gun when they are cornered. Play an operative if you like guns and want to deal high damage to your designated targets. Well, you know what? You cannot fault them for beating around the bush on that one. They came right out and said that. So again, right off the rip, before we even get into this, we see this continuing developing meta of Starfinder 2, which I think is so important. And I would also highly recommend that GMs pay extra close attention to this. Cover, 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 cover. Not to say that Pathfinder 2 is any different. You should have robust and exciting and interesting and diverse battlefield elements in your Pathfinder 2 games. However, a lot of people run Pathfinder 2, and I've seen it where the combats are essentially on a 16 by 16 or 20 by 16 featureless grid. So I think it's really important here that we have a lot of elements here that can deal with that elements. Now, Sweet Threat says the operative feels more like a fighter than a rogue to me, and I think that's quite all right, Sweet Threat. Just as a quick aside, I will say that the rogue has felt more like a fighter ever since they started calling it a rogue back in 3rd edition. The thief was undoubtedly a thief. I think that we have moved away from the idea of the rogue as sort of a thief character, and now the rogue in the community zeitgeist is more of a John Wick, Assassin's Creed type mentality where they are kind of this highly dexterous, ultra skilled, super almost anime level badass fighter. And that's kind of what rogue means to most people now, honestly. So I don't know that I would disagree with you here. All right. So we are a quick-witted, highly focused professional who thrives in high-stakes combat. Our deadly aim and tactical training gives us an edge over our competition, for even the most powerful enemy is just another one mark to take out. Okay. Our key attribute is dexterity, and we are at 8+ con. So we're kind of looking like a rogue all right off the rip. So we have a couple key terms, which we'll see again. Again, flourishing. We've seen continued and increased use of the flourish trait in numerous one-action activities, and I am here for it. I think one-action flourish activities is a great way to use the Pathfinder 2 / Starfinder 2, whatever we want to call it, the Paizo engine. I don't know what to keep referring it to, but in any case, I think it's great. But we do see two new terms: aim, which is a specific action that is used to focus on a target to bring extra damage, and expend, where we use extra charges of ammunition. Extra number of charges or ammunition of a ranged weapon consumes each time the weapon is fired. Lastly, gun is any ranged weapon with a analog or tech trait. So, aka not a bow and arrow. And the mark term, which is the target of our aim action. Okay. And again, we see this stuff here where, we have what you might do during an encounter. And of course, obviously, we're going to be lining up perfect headshots and, headshot, no scoping people while jumping between buildings. That's the meta here, John Wick meta. And of course, we might, in social encounters, we might, talk about stuff. These are always very, I've said this before, but this stuff is always really kind of silly to me. But anyways. Initial proficiencies. Here we go, right off the rip. So we start with expert in perception. Great. Not only are we going to be, perception is obviously important for being, aware and being able to spot and see things, but also it's your initiative typically 99% of the time, or at least 90% of the time in Pathfinder 2, Starfinder 2. So yeah, good expert. Expert ref, expert will, train in fort. So great saves, double expert, single fort. That's a great place to start, obviously. Surprisingly low level of skills. We get one skill determined by our specialization, and then we are trained in only 3 plus our int modifier. So again, this is definitely sort of breaking a little bit with the rogue idea of they're this deadly assassin with their sneak attack, and also they get a bunch of skills. I actually think this is a better way of sort of focusing it. I don't really think the skill-focused rogue makes sense anymore, given the way that skills have been democratized, especially in a game like Pathfinder 2, where anybody can be kind of trained in anything. There's no reason why my fighter or my oracle or my wizard can't pick up the thievery skill, especially if I have a halfway decent dex, and not only be trained in it, but be an expert, be a master, even a legend, and take skill feats and be really, really good at that. There's no reason why the rogue has to be the person with thievery and all this other stuff, especially since they clearly have a combative role that has been carved out for them in the sort of modern MMO style meta. And I say that not like derisively, but like, nowadays we think of rogues as being DPS. And right off the bat, boom, huge. They start in expert in guns. So this is really more of like a gunslinger than a rogue. So yeah, wow, neat. Okay, big. This is a fighter level ability, right? Where we're starting the game at expert proficiency. I personally love to see it. I think that's cool. I think hitting is fun. I think critting is even more fun. Hopefully we kind of solve some of the gunfighter issue or a gunslinger issue where the gunslinger basically is crit or bust. But we'll see. Train only in light armor. Obviously they're dex class though, so that's not as bad as it seems. So yeah, that's pretty good. So, I mean, you start with an 18 dex, you start in your light armor, you're probably gonna be starting the game off with somewhere around AC 18, which is a totally acceptable place to start the game. I think, is anyone capable of starting at the game with a base AC of higher than 18? Like, obviously you can have full plate, but I don't think you can ever really afford that at level 1. I mean, you could raise a shield and stuff, but I don't know. If you know of something that can, put it in chat. Could be Starfinder or could be Pathfinder too. Okay. So we've got our class features. Okay, there's a weird monk trick. Okay, Dex monk. Okay, that makes total sense, right? Because monks start what? They are expert unarmed. Are they expert armor or expert unarmored? So yeah, so that's 5 plus they can have 18 Dex. That would be 19, right? Monks are so cool. Anyways, I don't think it's like a super, like supremely overpowered class in Pathfinder 2, but I do think the Pathfinder 2 monk is really cool, by the way. Just saying. Okay, sorry, I was distracted by the monk. The thing is, so I don't know if you guys know this, but I had a house rule for monks because I hated the fact that they would use a shield or could use a shield. This is totally a side note. So I house ruled in my PF2 game that if you had I'm going to look it up here. PF2. I don't even remember officially what the name of the ability is. I made it. It didn't matter because it was a house rule, but I wanted it to be like, official. I had a rule that if you had the powerful fist ability, then you basically had the ability to raise a shield, even if you didn't have a shield. Basically, just because I just hated the idea of monks with shields. Like I think it was really cool that a monk. I don't think a monk should have a shield. It's just in my mind, no one's ever going to make that art. Okay, you might be able to use AI to make that art, but no one's ever going to make. You're never going to find that art out on the interwebs anywhere, because it's just stupid. And monks, their hands are like iron. Their fists are like wood. Of course there is. Of course there is. All right. So, what do we start off with? Or what do we get here? So we got 20 levels, of course. We start off with our ancestry and background. We get our attributes, our proficiencies. We get the sharpshooter ability. So we'll be sure to take a look at that. We get the aim D4. So this is similar and presumably to our sneak attacks sort of feature. We get our specialization. So it looks like the first two classes we looked at really didn't have, oh no, I guess it did. We had our paradox. The Solarian didn't really have a subclass because you shifted between photon and graviton attuned. But the Witch Warper, you had your choice of 4 paradoxes. But so here we're going to pick our operative specialization, and we get a feat at level 1, as we would expect. And then we get our normal stuff as we go up. We get a couple other things here. Focused. Our aim continues to improve. Looks like we continue to get more proficiencies. We get this on the move plus 5 feet ability later on. So okay, so we got some stuff to look at. So we'll go from there. What do you mean, Dr. Metropolis? It's choosing your Solarian weapon. I'm curious what you mean by that. Because you get all 3 manifestations. You get Solar Flare, Solar Nimbus, and Solar Weapon. I mean, you get all 3 of them. So, and you get all 3 of them at the same time. So, there's no choice really to be made there. Well, I suppose you mean like in terms of like picking that your weapon's like a 2-handed thing or something. I mean, that's a thing here. Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. You're picking if it's, that's flavor. Okay. Yeah, you're not making a real choice. Anyways, sorry. We fall back from last time when we were talking about the Solarian. Okay. So back to our operative. Okay. So at level 1, we get our normal feats, background, proficiencies. And again, we talked about our starting proficiencies, great proficiencies, expert perception, expert reflex, expert will. You're going to be a combat-oriented class. I wouldn't expect you to have a low constitution. High dex is going to work out well with your light armor training, and of course, expert in guns. So again, that means you're going to be starting the game off with probably a +9 to hit, which is damn nice. Okay. Aim, 1 action, has the concentrate trait. If you are wielding a ranged weapon that does not have the area trait, okay, so we can't aim presumably with a grenade or maybe like an RPG. You take careful aim at a single creature that you're aware of, designating it as your mark until the end of your turn. So it's got to be that you're burning an action. Your range strikes against your mark using the required range weapon deal an extra D4 precision damage. And reduce the circumstance bonus to AC your mark gains from cover by 1. These benefits only apply if your mark is within your weapon's first range increment, and you can only have one mark at a time. As your operative level increases, increase the number of dice at 5, 11, and 17. At 11th level, also reduce the cover by 2, and at 17th level, the level reduces by 4. So, we are burning an action, presumably, to do a slight increase in damage. Now, on paper, that's not great. Now, to be clear, presumably, with your rogue or whatever, you're quote unquote burning an action, say moving into melee, or maybe hiding so that you can shoot from cover or concealment. But I think that what's interesting about this is that the damage isn't quite as high. It's D4 instead of D6. And part of the reason for that is because there's really not a whole lot that the enemy can do. I mean, in theory, the enemy could position itself so it can't be flanked, or the enemy you might not be able to hide from them. So there's sort of a circumstantialness to it. If you aim, it looks like they are just aimed at. There's nothing that the enemy can do to resist that, which is kind of nice. It's quick. It's speedy. So you get D4 instead of D6. It's not the end of the world. But you do also reduce the benefit from cover. So that is actually, to say something, I mean, that basically eliminates the benefit from light cover. And again, it halves the benefit from standard cover. Now, I will say this ability is really predicated on how much cover and terrain your GM is using. If most monsters or most creatures or most firefights are taking place as people bobbing and weaving and diving behind barrels and diving behind communication consoles and firing from blast doors, and everybody's got light cover, heavy, greater cover, standard cover. If people are taking cover, then this action becomes a lot stronger. If you guys are fighting on an open desert field, this action becomes a lot less appealing. Now, presumably, there's also going to be feats and class features that key into whether or not somebody is our mark, because, again, we noted the term mark, which is the target of our aim. Also, one would hope that if we're aiming, not saying we have to, but if we're aiming, we're probably really, really priced into wanting to shoot that person twice, because we already used an action to aim at them. So, and it lasts until the end of our turn. So we might as well get the most bang for our buck, That being said, this, because by the time you're 11th level and you reduce the mark cover by 2, that's basically standard cover being eliminated. That's pretty substantial. Obviously 17th level, you're ignoring greater cover, which is insane, but it's going to really depend on that. Am I just going to read the entire rule book? No, I'm reading the class roll for combat. Also, too, quite and simple. This is actually kind of simple. Point and click. You aim at them, and then you shoot them, and then you do the extra damage, and hopefully they're dead. You already have a really high bonus to hit. If there is cover, that's going to penalize your bonus to hit. This helps ignore it, so you're going to be, again, more likely to crit. So crit, 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 crit. As an operative, you have a particular set of skills based on your tactical style. These define your character and your approach. Choose your specialization. This grants you training in one skill, a skill feat for that skill, and an exploit. At 9th level, you gain an enhanced exploit. So our specializations are: you can be a ghost, you can be an infiltrator, or you can be a skirmisher. So a ghost is, StarCraft. You're a ghost. You sneak in, you get, you spy, you're, hard to find, slippery, stealthy. You're trained in deception, and you gain a skill feat for deception. You also get an exploit. You can aim at targets you're undetected by as a free action. So if you are hidden, you can aim for free. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So that's pretty neat. We gotta find him here. There we go.
Ghost reporting.
That was way too loud.
Ghost reporting.
There we go.
I'm here. Never know what hit 'em. I'm gone.
All right. So
Call the shot. I'm all over it. I'm all over it. Call the shot.
all right. Do we have it here? There we go. There we go.
Nuclear launch detected.
Okay.
Nuclear missile ready.
Anyways. That's pretty cool. So now if we start if we start the game, if we start the fight undetected, we could aim for free. That's neat. We get that action rebate. And then of course if we're hidden, we kind of get an immediate rebate on our aiming. So if we can actually hide, then we are now undetected. If we're undetected, we can aim for free and then we can shoot, and that's pretty neat. Additionally, at 9th level, we can avoid detection even after engaging our enemy, and we gain the ghost tap action, which we do not gain until 9th level. If we strike and we were hidden, then we can distract them and re-hide. Because normally when you make a strike, you become visible to your opponent if you are hidden or undetected, as the term here is, hidden or undetected. And then this allows us to sort of distract them with a flare or some sort of other thing so that we can basically re-hide automatically. But most importantly, it's a free action. So very much playing into the ghost. My good buddy Rich is in chat and he says, I love it. I've actually been playing BGH against comps within the last week. So BGH, for of course, all the people who didn't spend the majority of the late 90s and early 2000s playing StarCraft, is a map called Big Game Hunters, which was usually one of the more popular maps to be played on BattleNet, which was a very basic map, but it had its purposes and it's fun. As for many of you who don't know, when Brood War came out, I kind of almost failed out of college because I was playing so much StarCraft Brood War. True story. My friends got it to me for me in my birthday. I want to say it came out in 2001. Brood War release date. Or not 2001. 99? I don't remember. Anyways, point is, they got it for me my freshman year and in college, and it was like, I played it a lot. So that's cool. I mean, that's neat. It's a fun way to get some action rebate, and you want to be hiding. Cool. Infiltrator we're the super hacker. So we get computer skill, we get a skill feat for computers, and we have an exploit, which gives us the sabotage action. This is a one action activity with concentrate and manipulate. We disrupt enemy tech to cover our tracks or gain a tactical advantage. Select a single tech creature or tech item. So, robots, guns, androids. If it's a tech creature, we have to make a computer's check against their fort DC. If it's an item, it's against its item DC or reflex DC if it's being carried or worn. If we become an expert in computers, the range goes out to 30 feet. If we're a master, 45 feet. And if we're a legend, 60 feet. Again, when we talk about the improvement in the tech of Pathfinder 2, putting in a passive scaling to scale, I think is really, really cool, really needed for the game. So I'm glad to see that they put this in here. If we do succeed at our sabotage action, the target becomes glitching, which is a new condition for Starfinder 2. This basically starts glitching, and if it is glitching, then they have to make a flat check at the beginning of your turns. It is 5 plus the value of your glitching, and that's if you want to see if this thing actually occurs, if you fail the glitch check, then you get a penalty to all of your checks and DCs equal to the glitching value. It's a lot of rolls for what amounts to probably a -1 or -2 to hit. But hey, it is what it is. Additionally, we can gain an enhanced exploit, where at level 9, we can now sabotage for free whenever we critically hit. So that's kind of cool. So like we can hit them and start causing, glitching on their things. Glitching seems really weak with how low those odds and numbers are. Well, yes, it's fairly math is tight, right? We're talking about glitching 1 having a flat check of 6. So, you're going to fail it 25% of the time. And 25% of the time when they do fail it, they are going to get a essentially a -1 to their check that turn. Now, there is a chance that you roll a nat 1 and they completely, miss out on their action in their turn. But yeah, it's not a big deal. Oh, no. Totally. It's very applicable. Yeah, 25% of the time it works -1. Now, math is tight, so we know that. So glitching 1, but glitching 2, now we're talking about glitching 2, 30% of the time they're going to get a -2 to their check. And I don't see something to recover from glitching other than getting a critical success. So potentially it might not be something that's very easy to remove, similar to the second condition. So it could be very powerful. Hachukin, thank you for the super chat. $20 for a super chat donation. Would you like to grab the PDF or a large pizza? If only a large pizza was $20 anymore. Pizza sounds really good. If I'm being honest with you, pizza sounds really good. I had a homemade burrito today with a keto-friendly tortilla wrap, which was mostly made out of, I don't know what, psyllium husk, because it was only like 70 calories, but had like 30 grams of fiber. It wasn't terrible, but it's okay. And then I had 99% fat-free ground chicken as the filling, with a little bit of fat-free Mexican cheese, some spring mix, and then a little bit of low-cal Caesar dressing put on there and then wrapped up. And that was my lunch/breakfast. The problem with the flat checks and with everything in this system, it's not a problem, but it's like things like the flat checks and persistent damage would be a lot more compelling to me if the combats went 5 rounds, 6 rounds, 7 rounds, 8 rounds. But the truth of the matter is most of the time they don't. And so it oftentimes might only come up once or twice. And that's where it's kind of, it can be annoying because you might apply this condition. It might like literally not ever happen. Like you might apply this condition multiple times during the course of the session and they might not ever suffer from their glitching penalties, I'd rather eat drywall than fat-free cheese. Well, on its own, I'm not going to eat fat-free cheese. And if someone's like, Derek, are you implying that you would eat cheese on its own otherwise? Fuck yeah, I would eat cheese on its own otherwise. I'm not even going to lie. This wasn't even like a fat Derek thing. I will happily fucking buy a brick of good quality cheese. And not some fancy schmancy cheese. I'm just talking about like a good block of cheddar. And I will happily carve me off some slices of that bad boy and eat that. I like cottage cheese. I like string cheese. I like all the cheeses, really. It's not, that's an S tier snack right there for me. Okay. In fact, when I was hiking the Appalachian Trail, obviously the long-term viability of a block of cheese is not like insanely high, but it's much higher than most things. When I would go into a town and I would leave, my backpack would be stuffed with, dry, dehydrated stuff that I could eat. But then I would also typically have like 4 or 5 of those pepperoni sticks or those salami logs. And I would get like 6 or 7 blocks of cheese and I'd be eating good for a couple days. Let me tell you. Also, just a little bit of cheddar cheese cut off, put on a saltine cracker or like a Ritz cracker. Oh my God. I will girl dinner all day. Happily. Anyways. Oh, cottage cheese is so good. Now, with a caveat, if you eat the salt-free, the no-salt cottage cheese, there is something wrong with you, okay? There is something wrong with you. The no-salt cottage cheese is horrible. The fat-free cottage cheese isn't great, but it's eatable. But the low-fat and obviously the full-fat cottage cheese is fantastic. I love it. I'll eat it straight up. I don't even need to put anything in it. I will literally just eat it right out the tub, and it's great. 110 calories a serving. If you get one of the things, it's 4 servings. If I add fruit, I usually add blueberries or raspberries or blackberries. I thought you were like a cheese guy. I am, but I'm not a cottage man. I'm not a cottage guy. What is this compelling bowl of white? Right. It's all about locking in and getting those macros. Cottage cheese has great macros. Let me just tell you something here. Also, side note, when they make cottage cheese, okay, you separate the whey from the curds. Ever heard of curds and whey? Well, the curds is what becomes cottage cheese, right? And then the whey is the liquid that drains away. Well, that whey is what they dry off, powderize, and that becomes whey protein, which means cottage cheese, like most cheeses, is predominantly and fully casein protein. So it's the other form of protein from dairy. You have whey protein and you have casein protein. And casein protein is much slower digesting than whey protein. So cottage cheese is almost 100% casein, which means it's very slow digesting. So it's great to eat in the morning. It'll keep you full all day. It's fantastic to eat at night before you go to bed because it'll keep your body in anabolic state because you'll have a high level of amino acids and proteins from that for the majority of the evening or until you wake up in the morning. So it's fantastic. It's great stuff. I like whey protein and all, but casein protein is also very good. And it's good, too, because you can buy powderized casein protein, but I think it tastes like ass. There are some whey proteins that I think just are basically a treat. I think they're delicious. But whenever I've had the powderized casein protein, I hate it. It's too chewy. It's not good. It's not good. So I would much rather eat some cottage cheese. Greek yogurt is also very good as well, but sometimes I don't want to slurp something, and Greek yogurt can be a bit slurpy at times. Okay. Anyways, cut that out. Moving on. Skirmisher. So we want to be the John Wick, all right? We go in close quarter missions, bodyguard, assassin, herbalist. Now, by the way, they're not even suggesting that your character is not using a gun here. You're going full gun kata, right? You're a close quarter combat specialist, but that means you're still using guns. In fact, now you're using pistols. You get acrobatics. Oh, sorry, I didn't. Thank you, Damien. Restore the screen. So we get acrobatics instead of the feats, and we are trained to fight in close combat using pistols. Our ranged strikes with one-handed ranged weapons do not trigger reactions that are triggered by ranged attacks. This comes up, it depends on how often people have reactions like attack of opportunity for using ranged weapons in combat, but yeah, okay, we can shoot our pistols as if they were a melee weapon in close combat, which is totally fine. The Oikos zero calorie or zero sugar is what I assume you meant. The Oikos zero sugar Greek yogurt is pretty good. It's 70 calories per serving. So it's pretty dang good. You can eat the whole freaking container and it's pretty good. They have a vanilla bean one that's really neat. There's something, it's a little, I don't know, I think they add a lot of xanthan gum or something. Anyways, your point blank shots are particularly deadly. At 9th level, we enhance our exploit. And whenever we make a successful strike against an adjacent enemy with a gun, pistol, we calculate the damage as if the lowest rolled weapon damage roll had the maximum result instead. So this is an interesting way of doing a damage bonus without increasing the cap, right? Because basically, if we roll a 2 and a 6 on a D8, so 2D8, we'll treat the 2 as an 8, right? but it doesn't actually push us up over what, the maximum that we could have rolled, which is interesting. And then lastly, of course, it's a damage floor mechanic. That's a great way to put it, Kirima, right? It increases the minimum amount of damage that we can do. So the average damage goes up, okay? The average damage goes up, but it doesn't increase the maximum damage that we can do, which is a cool mechanic, right? Pushes up the floor without raising the ceiling. Like if you added +3 damage, you'd be raising the floor and the ceiling. Here, we're just raising the floor, so the average goes up. And lastly, sniper. Obviously, we all know what a sniper is. Makes sense. We get stealth. It's a little strange to me that the ghost doesn't get stealth. Obviously, the sniper, I suppose, should get stealth too, but it's weird that the ghost doesn't get stealth. I get it. They get deception, which is fine, but we ignore the unwieldy, which normally only lets you make a strike once per round, and the volley trait of guns that belong to the sniper group. You gain one of the following operative feats as a bonus feat. Keep them in your sight or scope sight. So basically, we ignore the drawbacks of sniper guns, and we get a bonus feat. Could be pretty cool. And then we get, if at 9th level, this expands, if we fail our first ranged strike against a weapon using our sniper rifle, reloading our sniper weapon becomes a free action, and this strike doesn't count towards your multiple attack penalty. Now that is hot fucking fire. One of the worst things in Pathfinder 2 is when you miss with your first attack and you know you should make a second attack, but knowing that your second attack is even, less likely to hit. So very cool. Very cool. And lastly, so we had the infiltrator, we had the skirmisher, the sniper, and now we have the striker. And finally, we get to the person who uses weapons, melee weapons, true melee weapons. We do not use guns. Martial artist, an assassin who kills with a personal touch. We take the fight to our foes, and we use our body as a weapon. So we get athletics, and we get a skill feat for athletics. Exploit. We gain expert proficiency. So normally, by the way, remember you're like, oh, why would you ever choose this? You got expert. You got expert proficiency in guns. Why would I ever not use a gun? Well, because the first thing this does is give you expert proficiency with one-handed melee weapons and unarmed attacks that have the agile and finesse trait instead of with martial guns. And whenever we would increase our proficiency with guns, we instead increase our proficiency with these weapons. So it swaps our proficiency out, right? It's a full proficiency swap. Fantastic. In addition, when we aim, which normally only works basically for guns, we can aim and apply those benefits to a one-handed melee weapon or unarmed weapon. And we treat any one-handed melee weapon with or unarmed attack with agile and finesse as a gun for purposes of meeting feats. Basically, a lot of text that says anything that said gun now means, your knives or your fist. Okay? We also get a reaction, the reactive step reaction. If a creature leaves a square during a move, using its action, we're able to move deftly around our foes, getting out of tricky situations, or managing to put ourselves where we can hold an advantage. We step up to twice directly towards the triggering creature. So if an enemy tries to move away, we can step twice. But we have to move towards the creature. We can't move away from them, but basically, if they're trying to get away from us, we can keep up with them, at least to a certain extent. And then at 9th level, this exploit improves to overwhelming strike, which is a free action. And if we hit a creature with a strike that we designated as our mark, aka we've aimed at them and it dealt damage, then they become enfeebled 1, off guard, or suppressed, our choice, until the end of our next turn. And we can't keep chaining it because they do become immune to it until the end of our next turn. But we can either knock them off guard, giving them an AC penalty. We can make them suppressed, giving them a attack penalty, or we could, and speed penalty, or we can make them enfeebled and just give them a generic strength penalty. So a lot of options there. I think all 4 of these are pretty good. Yeah, which is really neat. Lugs wants to know, why is class design so much better in Starfinder Second Edition versus Pathfinder? So you mean Pathfinder Second Edition? The answer, Lugs, is, I think, threefold. Number one, because they've had 6 years to learn more about their game and how it really works. Number two, I think moving away from the sort of legacy of Pathfinder 1 gives them more freedom. I think people are more willing to experiment in particularly Starfinder 2, but even in the modern era of like when you saw Pathfinder 2 first came out, they had to convince people who were playing PF1 to transfer to PF2. And if you changed too much too quickly, I think you would have caused a backlash. Now they've kind of boiled the frog a little bit. And three, quite frankly, I think that in general, people who have been playing Pathfinder 2 have sort of moved away from some of the deeply orthodox simulationist belief structures and have sort of embraced more of, hey, I'd rather have cool game mechanics that maybe don't necessarily meet all of my simulationist criteria. And so now we can get, more fun, cool stuff. I kind of like all of these. I think the ghost is neat. I like that you can, if you can become undetected, you can aim for free. I like that you can sort of re-hide after striking. It feels very ghosty. I like the infiltrator. I don't, sabotage seems like it might be a little bit potential to not work that often. But it's, so it's probably not my favorite, but it's still pretty cool. Skirmisher is great. You're walking around with your pistol, shoot. I love this 9th level enhancement, so your pistols are particularly deadly without making it a damage race. And then the sniper is great. And striker seems really cool too. I like the clean swap of swapping it. It's very, very generic. It's just one-handed melee weapons and unarmed attacks. So plenty of choices for whatever kind of operative you want to be. Overall, I think these are all pretty good. I think these are pretty good. And I feel like you can scratch a lot of itches, something to what Lugs is saying. I could see a situation or a world where like these could have been different classes. I like that these are just different subclasses and we kind of can all work off of the one core class chassis, which is great. So, we have our specialization. We get a feat at level 1 and every other, and 2 and 4 and 6 and 8. At level 3, we gain the focused ability. Now our reflex save started at expert, but right away off the bat, if we roll a reflex save against our mark, we get a critical success instead. Now, that's interesting. Does this I thought aim only lasted until the end of your turn. Oh, the bonus damage only applies that turn. But then they continue to be our mark. Got it. But we only get the benefits that turn. And by the way, right off the bat, like this is what Ranger this is what the Rangers quarry thing should do, because it just feels so bad, I think, to be the Ranger and to hunt prey. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to get a bonus to damage, right? I mean, that's what hunt prey is, right? I'm going to get some sort of sick bonus to damage. And you're like, no, you get a +2 bonus to perception checks. You're like, well, I'm in the middle of fighting. Like, he's right there. I can see him. Yeah, but you also get a bonus to survival checks. And you're like, again, I cannot stress this enough. He's right there. And you're like, okay, yeah, but you don't get a penalty for that second range increment. And you're like, okay. And you're like, well, you can only use your feats against your hunt prey, so it's kind of cool. And you're like, okay, but I'm not precision. And you're like, yeah, I know. It's disappointing. It's what it is. It's just the way I think that people think that this ability should work, and it doesn't work that way. This, I think, works the way that I think people think it should work. So that is that. Okay, we do get bonus skill feats. It's interesting. And it has to come from our specialization. We also get mastery at 5. We get critical specialization at 5 for guns. At level 5, we ignore difficult terrain in urban environments and downgrade greater difficult terrain in urban environments, which is kind of neat. Again, if terrain is really heavily a focus in these games, then obviously if we're fighting on some, cratered hellscape of a moon, this isn't going to help us. But I mean, I can imagine a lot of, Blade Runner-esque running gun fights through, neon electric cities, and if there's a lot of terrain, both cover and difficult terrain, stuff like this is going to come up, and I think it's going to really, really matter, which is really cool, especially if you have that striker who can step, or is it the skirmisher? It's either the skirmisher or the striker who can step a bunch, and obviously you can't normally step through difficult terrain, so that's kind of cool. Logan, I'm glad you brought up the ranger. I feel like you could swap out gun for bow in the feats, and this is the ranger that ranger players will have always wanted to play. I kind of feel that way personally, but yeah, I mean that is generally speaking how I feel. And you are right, Sweet Thread. You can hunt your prey miles before if you track it. I find that in most Pathfinder 2 scenarios, though, this almost never comes up. Could it come up? Yes. Has it come up? Sure. But most of the time, I feel like it really doesn't. Not saying it doesn't ever, but it might. But thank you, Logan. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that this is pretty neat. Striker is melee. Skirmisher is gun kata. Yes, there we go. What does that mean? If you use space technology to make a bow, it gains the analog trait and thus becomes a gun? What does that mean? Yasuke, I completely agree with you. Unfortunately, that's just kind of like not what it really means anymore. And also, quite frankly, that most campaigns these days don't really focus or care about stuff like that. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I completely agree with you, just to be completely clear. Got it. Okay. So if I make an analog sword, is it a gun? We get reflex mastery at 7, along with an upgrade of critical success, which is neat. So we're really good at reflex saves early. By the way, we also have really high dexterity, so our characters are going to be really good at avoiding AoEs. I mean, getting a success upgrade to crit success, right? So basically evasion, obviously. But on top of that, with a really, so very good at that. Finally, at level 9, we get expert in fortitude. So our fort's going to lag behind a little bit, but this isn't terrible. At level 11, we just get a flat ass bonus to plus 5 foot status bonus to speed, plus 10 status bonus to speed at 16. Now, again, I don't know the Starfinder 2 meta. I don't know if we're all walking around with long strider wands or digital long strider wands or whatever the fuck Karama was talking about. So I don't know if this is going to be extremely useful or not, but assuming that we do not have ready access to long strider wands, as sometimes people do in Pathfinder 2, that's pretty good. I just don't understand how making an analog bow makes it a gun. That's what I don't understand. By that definition, isn't everything a gun? I mean, that's probably fine. Who gives a shit? But I just think it's kind of weird and interesting that that's what you're, according to you, that's what the rules say. So, we get upgrades to our proficiencies. Of course, we become legendary at level 13. Okay. Oh, nice. Critical aims. Karama says it means they defined it weird. So what it really means is that Karama is being a rules lawyer and is applying some weird-ass raw interpretation instead of the rules as intended. Got it, buddy. Thanks. Love you, Karama. Why they don't put you on every single editing team, no one will ever know, my friend. But you should be. the first time in each round when you aim and then make a ranged strike against your mark, add your weapon's critical specialization effect to the attack, even if you don't critically hit. That's pretty good. What is the critical specialization effect, though, of a gun? I guess it'd probably be faster for me to look it up in the actual book. Maybe. Weapons. Critical hit. Gun. 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 Projectile? Sniper? Which one is it? I guess it depends on the gun. Shit. I guess there's a lot of guns. All right, let's say we had... I guess there are a lot of guns. Jesus. Plasma. Okay, so there's just a lot of guns. Well, if it was a sniper rifle, we had 2 points of damage per weapon die. So that's not bad. We just, by that level, we have like 3 or 4 weapon dice. So we're just always adding 6 or 8 damage. Yeah, got it. There are multiple weapons groups. Yep, I saw that now. We get master will saves at 17. Keep in mind, we've been at expert will save since the beginning, since level 1. So we finally get to master here. We also get the upgrade on the will. So we'll end with do we get legendary reflex? Doesn't look like we get legendary reflex. So we end with master reflex, master will, expert fort. At level 17, we also get tactical barrage. So basically, it looks like we get the 1 ranger subclass specialization for free, right? We get the, what is it called? The flurry. It's been a long time. The flurry ranger. Is that what it's actually called? I can't even remember now. But that's pretty cool. Just flat out for free. That's nice. And then at 19, yeah, for the free price of being level 17, we just pick up an entire ranger subclass. Cool. By the way, the ranger subclass, yeah, that's literally, I think that's all that subclass does. We just get it for free at 17. Obviously, it kicks in a little bit earlier, or something, whatever it is, I think. Galaxy Renowned, we get a legendary proficiency with advanced guns. Okay, and we get Operative DC of 19. We also get legendary perception, and finally, master armor proficiency. Dirty Phil, what's up, buddy? Just for a few bucks for Canes after the show. No interest in Starfinder yet. Just ran my first Daggerheart game yesterday. Keep up the great work. Thanks for all the content. Yeah, so everybody give a shout out to Dirty Phil here. His 5e group, as I recall, Dirty Phil. His 5e group kind of the GM bailed or something like that. And so Dirty Phil said, "Hey, I'll run a one shot of Daggerheart." Now, Dirty Phil has never run a game before, never even GM before, let alone GM Daggerheart. Ran the game for the group of players, and they loved it so much that apparently they are now in discussions about changing over their game. So, I mean, when you talk about just a complete W, to run a game first time, run it well, do it at the last minute, and then do it so well that your group is considering switching systems because of that. I mean, that's a fantastic W. So, Dirty Phil, this one's for you. Yes, so real nice stuff here. Yeah, absolutely a better ranger for sure. I mean, I'm not saying that he's completely a better ranger, but it's kind of a better ranger. I probably won't be able to get pizza by the time I finish up the stream, but Cane's is open till midnight, so. Super Writer Andy, do you have any tips on running a social heavy one shot for Daggerheart? Well, tonight's about Starfinder 2, and we're not really going to go too much into Daggerheart, but I would simply say that I would create a couple of interesting environments so that the parties feels like they still have mechanics that they can clomb onto or cling into. And if you really wanted some more mechanical heavy things, I think there's some cool ideas from Draw Steel about using their negotiation system, which I don't think would be terribly horrible for stealing. But since it's a one shot, I would really just more focus on showing the players how succeeding with hope or fear and failing with hope and fear sort of alter people's mood and attitude. You didn't convince them, but you roll with hope, so they're starting to warm up with you. They don't want to help you go to war, but they do have a crush on you, right? Or maybe you succeed with fear. they agree, they begrudgingly agree to your request, but they don't like that you called them out in front of the people, and now they dislike you, right? So showcase and highlight those sort of 5 modalities, right? Of failure with hope, failure with fear, success with hope, success with fear, and critical success, which is kind of like super success with hope. Okay. This class is much more basic than the ones that we saw last time. And that's okay. This is the class for somebody who goes, I just want to do deeps. I don't want it to be super complex or simple. I just want to be the badass, cool damage dealing, John Wick, cool sniper type character, cool gun kata type character. I just want to like push my button and pew, 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 pew. Almost all of the abilities here are, you know, designed to just make sure that you can do damage, that you're consistently doing damage, that if you miss, you can still do damage, that if you crit, it, you know, it's just damage, 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 damage. So on the bias, this seems pretty good to me. So let's take a look at some of the class feats and see what we have here. Now, again, we're going to take a look at the level 1 and level 2 feats, and then we might look at a couple of the in-betweens, and we'll take a look at the high-level ones. So again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 level 1 feats. Now, none of them have prerequisites. So again, we're noticing a trend here where instead of being highly specialized into their subclasses, where half the feats are you can't take them because they require one of the specializations that you didn't take. It looks for the most part like these are all, there's a couple of maybe 1 or 2 feat trees, but they're not like tied into your specialization, which I think is awesome. I hate it when you realize that the entire class list, 20% of the feats are for a subclass that you didn't pick, 20% are for a subclass you didn't pick, and the other 20% are for a subclass you didn't pick. Only 20% of them are for your subclass, and then 20% of them are open, you know? So that's great, especially for a non-spellcasting class, Dr. Metropolis, because it's a martial class. It's kind of defined by its feat choices, right? So elusive target is a reaction, more reactions, love reactions. A strike targeting you fails. You move out of the way and you step. This can seem a little bit useless, but the fact of the matter is this has a lot of applicability in Pathfinder 2. Number 1, melee is any strike. So if a creature engages with you and misses with its first attack, then by being able to step, oftentimes you make it so that the creature can no longer make a follow-up attack. Now, map attack is a -5, but miss. But secondly, you could potentially be in a position where you had line of sight to make a shot, and then after they miss you, because you had to be in the shot, you can now step fully behind cover to the point where they don't have line of effect or line of sight at all to you. So not only are their future attacks from that character disabled, but the rest of the perhaps enemy squad can no longer take shots at you, or they can no longer take good shots at you because now maybe you have greater cover. So that's really, really cool. You could also imagine a situation where you were forced to be in a position where, again, they could potentially see you so that you could make your shots, but then you take a step, you're now behind total cover, very easy to make a hide check, become hidden, move around the battlefield. Very cool for this type of ability. And it's just a reaction. So you can just use this over and over and over again throughout the fight, getting a little bit of 5-foot move here, 5-foot move here, 5-foot move there. Very neat. I think that's cool. Instinctive aim. Now, this is one action. You draw your gun and take careful aim with the same motion. You interact to draw a ranged weapon or switch hands and then aim with the same action. Now, these, unfortunately, are, these are these action increasers. It's cool that you get 2 actions for the price of 1. I don't know how often. It's one of those like Han Solo situations. How often are we really going to be, needing to pull our weapon out in a combat? Maybe it's more often in Starfinder 2. It is an action compression, but it's one of those things that only matters if your weapon is not out. And I kind of agree with Dr. Metropolis here. These kind of economy feats usually are not needed. How often do you really need to draw your rifle? It'll come up. It'll definitely come up. But I don't know how often it will come up. Keep them in your sights. Now, remember, by the way, this is one of the 2 feats that we get for free if we're the skirmisher, I think. Hopefully we did not lose the SRD. Here we go. You always keep a target marked and in your sights, even if they move. When you aim, the benefits apply if your mark is within the first or second range weapon increments rather than within the first. Now, I think this comes down to what are the range increments like on our guns. So if we take a look at some of our weapons here, I don't know if we'll be able to easily see it. Here we go, range. These are obviously melee. So like a laser rifle has a 100-foot range. A laser pistol has a 40-foot range. So if we're used to sort of standard PF2 ranges, these are probably more than sufficient within the first range increment. But if we are suddenly using larger battlefields with a more ranged meta, I could definitely see that getting a benefit, especially for some of these pistols, which only have a range increment of 30 or 40 feet. Now you can potentially aim out to 60 feet or 80 feet, which I think is pretty significant. Obviously, if you've got something like, again, the Seeker rifle or, the laser rifle, 100 feet's probably all you really need in that respect. Interesting. I mean, it looks like we have a really interesting, the ranges here are really cool, are really interesting to me because we get a lot of really interesting, what I would typically call mid-range stuff. In PF2, you got a lot of like 100+ foot stuff, and then you have a lot of like 10-foot stuff. So it's interesting to see all like the 40 feet, the 60 feet. That's really interesting. So yeah, I mean, I could see that this is potentially a good thing. I think this could be a good thing. The assassin rifle, huh? It's D10, 120 feet, fatal D12. It's a sniper rifle. Kickback. Unwieldy and volley. Now remember too, our sniper ignores the unwieldy and the volley, which is pretty cool. Oh, it's also got backstabber. Wow. So with the sniper, we do additional damage dice. With the backstabber, we do additional damage dice if they're off guard. And then with the fatal, if we crit, right, we upgrade, we include an additional die and we upgrade all of the weapon damage dice from D10 to D12, which isn't like the end of the world, but it's still pretty fucking nice. I mean, let's call it what it is. If you're a sniper who isn't using this and hoping for the crit to end all fucking crits, right? Like that is a massive crit. I do see that you need a bipod or have to have a strength of +2. Whatever, I'll throw 14 into strength. I'll fucking hold that sniper rifle. So Melnick, this is the range increment. That is not the maximum distance that the weapon can shoot. It says that for every 120 feet, you suffer a -2 penalty for any shots beyond that. So at 240 feet, you get -4. At 360 feet, you get -6, and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, compared to a real sniper rifle, which are accurate out to probably, 1,000 yards or something like that, it doesn't really work out that well. But, it's a game, so it's okay. Okay. No problem, Melnick. But yeah, I mean, so you can imagine that. I mean, you could realistically shoot that weapon with a fair amount of accuracy, out to 240, 360 feet, Mobile aim is our other first level feat, or one of our other first level feat. This has the traversal. You rarely still, and you've learned to reliably hit your target even when moving. You stride and then aim with a gun you're wielding. Now that's an action compression I can get behind. That's really good. This has got to be one of the top tier feats for level 1, right? I mean, not for maybe for every single one of the specializations, but that is really good because you're going to want to aim a lot of times and you're going to want to move a lot of the times. And again, traversal just means that you can, you can crawl, you can swim, depending on what speed you have. It's not just a land stride. That is really cool. That's really good. You can jetpack aim. Scope sight. Scope sight. Yeah. Say that 5 times fast. I'll try spinning. That always works. Scope sight. Viewing your marks through a scope is instinctive as opening your eyes. Whenever you aim, you can interact to activate a sight weapon upgrade. Now, this is where my lack of knowledge of how everything works in Starfinder 2 is potentially hindering me a little bit. I don't know what a sight weapon upgrades is. Apparently, it is a whole other element of the meta. It's not like a rune, which makes sense to me. Obviously, I understand what a weapon sight is and does. Is this going to work? Sight. Apparently not. No. Okay, apparently it's not under equipment. It is under upgrades. Still not working here. Oh, maybe it's under. Oh, it's under weapon upgrades. Not upgrades, weapon upgrades. Okay. So I'm assuming that this is a sight. A telescopic sight. Adjust sight. 1 action. Increase the range increment of the weapon by 10 feet. If it's 50 feet, increase it by 20 feet instead. This lasts until the beginning of your turn until you're no longer wielding the weapon, whichever comes first. That's a... if we get higher level ones, it increases it by 40 feet all the way up to plus 80 feet. So obviously massive range increments there. Here's a sniper... Oh, that's what we were just looking at. How many sights are there? Is that the only sight? Oh, we have true sight. Kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like gun meta magic. It's like reach spell for guns, kind of. Well, it's hard for me to judge that one because, again, I don't really necessarily 100% know how many sights you're going to have and what you're going to do it. But it is good action economy because you're going to be aiming a lot. Now, I know this is going to sound stupid, but if we had mobile aim and scope sight, would we be able to move, aim, and interact with our scope or sight weapon all with 1 action? I think we would. Right? Mobile aim says we take mobile aim, we stride, and then we aim. So aim is a subordinate action. Scope sight says whenever you aim with a capital A, and mobile aim is clearly saying we are using the subordinate action of aim, capital aim. And it's because scope sight is passive. There we go. Okay. Come on, Damien says, come on, in the APs, you're going to be in 30-foot rooms, even when you're in space. I mean, to be fair, if we had a really sick scope, being able to combine mobile aim and scope sight would be pretty sweet. 1 action would let us move, then aim, and as we're aiming, we can activate our scope to get the bonus for our scope. That's 3 actions that are probably quite valuable for us, given that our character might be a sniper or something like that to that effect, for 1 action. So we're getting that much action economy advantage from 2 feats. So that's pretty sweet. We have 2 more first level feats. Tactical Advanced. We dodge and roll for 1 action. If we're not encumbered, we stride up to our speed, and it doesn't trigger reactions. So we get to what's it called in 5th edition? Disengage. So it's 1 action to move. It's got flourish, so we can't do it for every action. We know most of the time though, if like we needed to move through a bunch of people who had reactions, this would be the one to do it. And then lastly, weakening shot. This is the only 2 action. Lug says, even rules like subordinate actions sound so much more appropriate in a sci-fi game than fantasy like PF2. That is actually a really interesting point, Lugs. One of the things that I've said about Starfinder 2 is, for whatever reason, the Pathfinder 2 game engine feels better to me in sci-fi. And I think part of the reason for it is because rules feel more like science fiction, whereas magic seems to be, in fantasy, seems to be kind of the opposite of hard rules. I don't know why that is. I don't know why I feel that way. Maybe I am unique in feeling that way, but I definitely feel that way. It's very interesting. Weakening shot is a 2-action activity, and apparently the SRD is really struggling, bussing here. Let's get a couple things open while we're looking at it. All right, weakening shot. We have to be wielding a gun. It's 2 actions. We target their limbs or load-bearing appendages. We aim and make a shot. So we're aiming and shooting. So this is great because we want to do those 2 things anyways. If it hits, they become clumsy 1, which is fantastic, or enfeebled 1, which is also pretty good, until the end of our next turn. Wow. That's really good. Wow, that's really good. If we crit, it's clumsy 2. That's really good. I'm really impressed by that. I also like, by the way, this is something we've seen again, and it exists in this exists in Pathfinder 2 as well. So this isn't just a thing about this Pathfinder 2, right? It's not just all pew 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 infinite damage. Now this is a cool way that our sniper can support the party, because now you can wing shot them. You can shoot them in the knee, and now your rest of your party gets to attack them with clumsy 1 or clumsy 2. So it's not just damage, right? You're being supportive, and in addition to doing a shitload of damage as well. I mean, imagine your hardcore sniper lining up a crit with this bad boy. Yeah. So very good, very awesome, very cool. Wow, that's really good. And those are all the level 1 feats. Only here to emote my sadness at there being another Pathfinder related stream. Well, don't worry, Beowulf. The people came out, they supported. We're going to be doing a couple ones here. By the way, this is not Pathfinder, it's Starfinder. So, all right. So level 2, we get danger awareness. Okay. Apparently this is also tied to an archetype. You have an intuitive sense. Okay. So we get danger sense. We get a +1 bonus to find traps, AC against hidden things. And even if we're not searching, we can get to make a search check. Okay. So kind of a generic, like if you wanted to pick up that danger awareness abilities, you get all this. Again, this really comes down to how your GM rolls these things, and are traps really an important thing of your game, and how often do they actually come up? Typically, I would probably not really recommend this. Getting +1 circumstance bonus to these things can oftentimes feel very ineffective because it's only going to matter 5% of the time when it does matter anyways. So just saying. Our next shot, or our next feat rather, is Defensive Gunner. You've learned to defend yourself with only a gun, shielding your body and deflecting blows with stock and barrel. Guns you wield gain the parry trait. If an appropriate weapon already has the parry trait, increase it to +2. So here's the thing about this. Do we need parry trait in a game where we are theoretically focusing on cover a lot more? I mean, obviously this might make more sense for somebody who's more of like a melee gun kata person. if you really need that third action to give yourself a whopping +1 to your AC. I guess what it really comes down to is, are there guns that already have the parry trait? Because it's just one of those things where it's like a lot of times you could just have a shield. I don't know how that works exactly in this system, but like having a shield isn't like the hugest deal anyways. So yeah, or like the equivalent of a buckler. So I've always found stuff like this to be pretty weak sauce, including the parry ability in PF2. Yeah, the old pistol and shield. I mean, isn't that kind of like what Captain America did, at least in the first movie? Okay, double tap, 2 actions. You have to be wielding a gun. You fire 2 shots at the same target in quick succession. Aim and make 2 strikes. Apply the multiple attack penalty normally, and then if both hit, add their damage. Wow. So it's kind of like a flurry of blows, but it's 1 extra action, but it's not flourish, and we get the aim. Yeah. And we only apply the weakness once, but we also only apply the precision damage once as well. So that is a slight drawback. Still, I mean, it's pretty good action economy, right? We're getting 3 actions for the price of 2. These are things that we're typically going to want to do anyways. So can't be too mad about that. Kill Steal. That's a great name. Reaction. An ally ends their turn after hitting a creature 2 or more times or critically hitting a creature. You're wielding a gun. You fire a quick shot at your foe. Your ally is focusing on attacks. Aim at the creature. Then make a range strike. Oh, I'm taking this 100% of the time. There is no other. They might as well not even write other feats at level 2. How would you not take this? This is fucking awesome. This is almost like, what is it called? It's not preparation. Backstab. What is it called in PF2? The one where, like, if your ally hits a person, you get to make an attack with a rogue. That is, yes, it's not quite the same because obviously it's whenever they opportune backstab. Thank you, Karama. Now, obviously, opportune backstab is obviously just whenever they get hit, but you have to be in melee. This is anywhere, anytime. Also, you're getting 2 actions for a reaction, including a strike with no map after you aim. How do you take anything other than this? This is like one of the coolest, best feats I've ever seen. Holy shit. I mean, just imagine, like, you're the sniper character, you're way in the back of the battlefield. Maybe you're posted up on some, catwalk or ladder. You're keeping an eye on. The Solarian comes in, hits with a crit. The enemy, you're just taking these, you're taking these opportune shots from across the battlefield. Holy shit. This is amazing. And I hope this class gets preparation. Absolutely, Philip. There's no range restriction. I mean, the only thing is, in order to aim at a creature, they have to be within your first range increment. So if you're using a sniper rifle, the range increment is 120 feet. So that's the only requirement. Well, I mean, this is like, am I crazy? I feel like this is like an A+, almost S tier feat. Like, you're getting 2 actions, 2 extremely valuable actions. Wow. Anyways. Peek. 1 action. I wonder if this interacts with like the cover rules. For those of you who don't know, Pathfinder has this really weird optional rule. It's not like a real action in that it doesn't get a defined thing in the game, but there's this action that lets you like look around a fucking corner. It's really weird. You shoot and then duck out of the way to avoid retaliation and errant gunfire. Make a ranged strike, then take cover. So it's not quite the same, but this is great. If we're in a cover meta, take cover, right? Increases the cover of your action, increases the value of your cover by 1 degree. So you can also not be in cover because you could just be near a feature that allows you to take cover. And this gives you standard cover. And then if you would have standard cover, you instead get greater cover. Yeah. This is a great feat too. I personally love the idea of leaning into this cover meta, which is really cool. I like that a lot. Swift reposition, another reaction. A lot of reactions. Wow, good stuff. What's up, Erica? Good to see you. You're about to roll a reflex saving throw, but you haven't rolled yet. You can spend your reaction to twist out of danger. Step or leap and gain a +2 circumstance bonus to your reflex save. You must deal. Okay, so this is what I don't like. I wish this was instead said, if this step or leap takes you out of the triggered area of effect, you are unaffected by it. That is what I would write here. That would be way cooler, right? So if you're right at the edge of an AoE, you can step out of it. And then if you're not right at the edge of an AoE, maybe your character does some crazy ass action movie leap out of the explosion before the rocket hits and is fine. That would be way cooler. And already, I'm telling you, automatic Derek house rule, that is in effect. Sorry, swift reposition, but yeah, that's really cool. Especially because our characters already have such a high reflex save, and we're going to eventually get evasion anyways, where if we pass a reflex save, we get the critical success, which usually means you don't take any damage. So who are we really benefiting from here? You know what I mean? Oh, well, Boothby, let's be very, very clear here. I don't care about any of these other feats either. I'm taking kill steal, but I'm not just taking kill steal so that I can shout it out as my action. I'm taking kill steal so that I can legitimately kill steal my allies' kills. Be like, okay, that's pretty sweet. So let's take a look at some other higher level feats. Let's take a look at devastating aim. Let's take a look at hair trigger. Let's take a look at opportune retort. Okay. Doesn't look like we have a preparation here. Up 360 no scope. How do we not look at that one? Fish in a barrel. I mean, these are all great names. We gotta get kill shot. I'm hoping combat reflexes is what combat reflexes is. Infinite aim. Okay, here we go. We should look at impeding shot. I don't think I loaded that one. Impeding shot. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this. Devastating aim is level 4. When you aim, we go from D4s to D6s. Nice. I mean, it's a little bit of damage, but let's be honest with ourselves. Rolling 3 or 4 D6 feels so much better than rolling 3 or 4 D4s. Hair trigger. Reaction. Feels perfect. The last creature you aimed at since the start of your last turn uses a manipulate, move, makes a range, or leaves a square, wielding a gun. You attempt a range strike against this creature, and this doesn't count towards your map, and your map doesn't apply. This is a ranged attack of opportunity. Full ass, like manipulate, move, makes a ranged, or leaves a square. This is full on ranged attack of opportunity. Wow. From our character, the one that has the fighter proficiency level and has all the bonuses stacked up on the crits. Wow. This is so sick. I mean, I mean, we were used to like classes getting an attack of opportunity at level 6, right? It's either just normal ass attack of opportunity or it's like some kind of weaker form of attack of opportunity, right? Like stand still. I mean, this is true. Eating up our kill still reaction is a real price to pay. Wow. You know, what about, imagine having to make crazy ass choices and it's not even our turn. In the playtest, it had interrupt on a crit and did not require the mark, and it was level 2. Well, that is completely busted. So to be fair, I think this sounds, I mean, if it had the interrupt on a crit, I think that'd be way too powerful. So, it also makes sense that it's only the person you're aiming at. I don't think the idea that you could do this on anyone on the battlefield doesn't make as much sense, right? So, actually, I think this is very perfect. I would say, if I would have completely said that would have been cracked. Yeah, I'm really excited about this as it is. So this is more than fine. This is a solid, in my opinion, A class feat, right? And remember, I think S tier feats are bad. I think that means they're too powerful. And this is great. Opportune Retort is level 10. A creature critically fails a melee attack roll against you, and you get to make a ranged strike immediately against the creature. So this is like our standard sort of riposte type thing. So nothing special here. These are fine. It's a great way to get extra attacks out of it. But I'm going to hop over to Impeding Shot. 2 actions. Shoot. You hinder your target with shot. Aim and strike. Perfect. So we get 2 actions. We get to take 2 actions that we want to take anyways, which is aiming and striking. But if the strike hits, oh my.
Horizon.
Shit. Slowed 1, no save? Does that say crit? If the strike hits. If the strike hits. Slowed 1, no save until the end of its turn. And then randomly, if it's flying, it falls 10 feet. I don't quite understand how that got tacked on there, but whatever. Wow. Slowed 1, no save on a hit. Wow. From a class with legendary proficiency at 13. And an ability to like negate or negate cover. I mean, you get to aim for free with this. Wow. The action economy here is insane, people. I don't know if you can really appreciate this. For 2 actions, you're getting 2 actions that you wanted to do anyways, but then you're taking away 1 action from an opponent. Now, that may not sound that great. It means like, isn't that just 3 actions? Yes, but remember, a lot of times the PCs outnumber the opponents. So in a traditional fight, right, you have 4 PCs and 2 standard level mount monsters. That's a traditional fight. That means that the enemy's actions are twice as valuable as the PC's actions. The PCs, a party of 4 PCs has 12 actions. 2 standard level monsters, which is a standard level encounter, have 6. So that means that when you slow the enemy, you are essentially taking twice, that action takeaway is twice as valuable. So this is really a 4 for 2 type situation. And not only that, it completely can disrupt entire action play patterns that the monster might have. Case in point, if for whatever reason they have a 3 action activity, they can't even take it. If they're currently prone or something, and then you slow them, you know, the only thing that they're going to be able to really do is stand up and move. They can't stand up and attack anymore. Or, you know, they can't stand up, move, and attack, right? So, I mean, you could, in some cases, depending on how well your group strategizes around this, you could basically make them waste their entire turn. It's disturbing, actually. Well, that's really great. Great names, too. 360 no scope. You have to have the parkour feat, which we did skip, but all right. So for 2 actions, you parkour, and I guess we'll open parkour so that we can see what you do. If it'll load. You parkour, then you aim, then you make a ranged strike, including while you're falling. So it's loading. Is loading. All right. Parkour. You dash forward. You can stride and long jump or high jump. You must start your movement on a horizontal surface. You can also ignore difficult terrain and run up walls at full speed. And if you end the stride off the ground, you fall. So if I'm reading this right, we get 2 actions out of parkour because we get a stride and a long jump, and we get a stride and a high jump. So we get 2 actions out of parkour. So we're getting 2 actions from parkour, then we're getting an aim, and then we're getting a range strike. So we're getting 4 actions for 2, which is move, jump, aim, strike. And when we make that strike, we can do it at any point during the movement. So for example, we could cross through a gap where there's no cover, shoot, then, or aim, shoot, and then complete our movement and get behind complete cover, greater cover, full cover, no line of sight, no line of effect. And that's only 2 actions. We could somehow in the midst of all that, we still have a 3rd action. So we've just taken 4 actions. We've strided, we've jumped, we've aimed, we've striked, and we still have an action left before or after this movement. Fish in a barrel. 2 actions. As the old saying goes, hitting easy targets is like shooting fish in a barrel. You aim and then make a range strike against a prone or immobilized creature not benefiting from cover. So it's 2 actions to aim and strike. So no action advantage, but that target has to be prone or immobilized. Treat a success as a critical success. If you roll a critical success, the creature is off-guarded and suppressed until the beginning of your turn on top of everything else that you happens to on a crit. I mean, this is a very nice piece of tech here, if you can make it work. At level 14, your character has legendary proficiency with their gun or with their striking weapon. You are going to hit, I mean, you're going to crit a lot anyways, but you are going to hit all the time. So upgrading a hit into a critical hit is like probably like, I don't know, 70% of the time, or something crazy. And then you are going to put that creature into complete and total disarray. Because they're going to be off guard, suppressed on top of everything else that you do with your critical effect hit effect. And there's a lot of ways, obviously, to knock people prone and immobilized from other classes, up to and including just grabbing them and grappling them. And you might even say, well, grappling them is going to give them cover, right? But we aim, so we ignore that cover. It is a bit of a win more feat, obviously. But, I mean, getting an automatic upgrade from success to critical success is crazy. And then making the critical success, if you roll the critical success, which is still probably a good chance, we get insane supercharged critical success. So this way we don't even feel bad if we still roll a normal crit, right? You see, this is a little bit of a game tech. See, you could just have treat a success as a critical success. And this is a really weird piece of game tech. This is the type of stuff that Derek notices all the time that I complain about and people don't understand me. If you just had this text, then when someone used fish in a barrel and rolled a natural critical hit because they rolled a 20 or because they rolled high enough with their attack bonus that they just got a critical hit anyways, you would feel, believe it or not, you would feel bad. I know it seems strange, but it would actually create a feeling of bad. So I love that they added that if you do roll a natural critical success, it makes that critical success that much stronger. So now, even if you roll the critical success, it feels better. So now it feels good and it feels good. So this is like really advanced level understanding of how games work and how player psychology work. So great. I mean, over the top and probably win more. Yes, but who cares? All right. Kill shot. We're up to 18th level. It's a 2 or 3 action activity. We take careful aim and shoot to kill. Going for the kill shot.
Ghost reporting.
There we go. Ghost reporting.
Call the shot.
There it is. You take careful aim at your mark and shoot to kill. You aim and then make a ranged strike. If this attack is a success, but not a critical success, you deal maximum damage. Calculate this damage as if every die that you would have rolled is maximum. On a critical success, roll the result normally. But if the double damage would be less than the result of maximum damage, use the maximum damage instead. Why is this 2 or 3?
Mr_Achinsky tip $10. Love your content. Please say my name properly this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rakzinski. Rakzinski? Did I get it right this time? Rakzinski? You may love my content, but I love your difficult for me to pronounce name. Why is this 2 or 3? Am I missing something? Apparently they screwed up and missed text. Let's take a look what they actually have here. I got my book. Oh, okay. If you spent 3 actions and your attack was a critical success, then you deal maximum damage and double the damage of that result as normal. Got it. Okay. That's pretty cool. I mean, I would have liked to have seen it just been instant kill, but strangely enough, this is actually probably better than if it was instant kill, because if it was instant kill, then it would have the incapacitation, and this basically would no longer function. So in a weird way, it's actually stronger that this doesn't kill people. I know that's fucked up, but that's like piezo system, it's like advanced piezo system thinking. It's better if this doesn't cause instant death, because if it causes instant death, it's going to have incapacitation and be useless. Instead, by just doing a shitload of damage, it's still essentially instant death for anything that would have been affected by the incapacitation effect, aka something lower level than us. And then for higher level monsters, it's useful. Shocking. This actually works to our advantage. So good job. Kill shot. That's a lot of damage. It'd be a lot of fun to roll with an assassin sniper rifle. Combat reflexes at level 20. So we have 2 level 20 combat reflexes. We gain an additional reaction each turn. And boy, I'm sure we would have wished we had this way earlier in the game, because we have a lot of really cool reactions, and I would want to use them all, including a double kill steal. Just saying. And then infinite aim, you can aim as a free action. Just straight up. You're a sharpshooter who doesn't need a scope or stance to shoot your best shot. And again, I like this because at this point in the game, if aiming is a free action, it kind of defeats the purpose of all your action economy it feats, and it also kind of defeats the purpose of the strategy of playing this class. And I'm okay with the game saying at level 20, you know what? You deserve it. The game is now easy mode to you. You know, you can just aim at all times, basically. You know, it's like almost everyone is your target. Wow. Basic, simple class. Yeah, exactly. Sweet threat. Level 20, you won. You know what? This is a celebration, you know? Yeah, you have fun. You enjoy yourself. You go enjoy yourself. I love this class. It is simple and to the point. It has just enough little fun, little controlling abilities, like what we saw with the suppressing shot and the impeding shot, to really feel like it's still part of a fun game. The stick and move, the aiming abilities seem really fun, really powerful, very good at what it does. Doesn't seem like it's going to have the problem the Gunslinger has. A lot of really cool, fun actions, a very high level of action economy, really cool movement abilities that actually feel like they'll be useful, again, in a ranged meta. A lot of different builds from your, gun kata, equilibrium style, matrix style, to your long distance sniper, to your melee person. It's just, yeah, it's pretty cool. Damien says it is not one reaction at level 20. Okay. Oh, at the start of each enemy's turn, you gain a reaction. Never mind. So this is completely cracked as well, obviously. So it's cracked in the same way that infinite aim is. And never mind, I'll be taking combat reflexes. Although, notably, you gain and you only gain the extra things at each enemy's turn. So kill steal actually wouldn't work with this. Hair Trigger would, but Killsteal would not, because unfortunately that is an ally's turn. And I think, again, you know, a lot of the feats here really point to the fact that if you're not playing in a sort of range and cover meta, as Don Poke is suggesting, you're going to be leaving a lot on the table. And I think you really need to think about that heavily. I think you need to be thinking about difficult terrain. I think you need to be thinking about line of sight, line of effect, lesser cover, greater cover, standard cover, elevation, ladders, catwalks, platforms, right? I think a lot of that stuff is going to really, really matter. And I think it's going to be harder to build a good SF2 fight than it is going to be to make a good PF2 fight, potentially, I think. As a complete side note, did anybody see, or maybe you've played with it? I haven't played with Codex yet. That's the Draw Steel VTT. Did anybody see the Matt Colville playing around with it, where it has that parallax shift, and then it understood that the model was up high and it cast a shadow, and then when he clicked off the grappled condition, the model dropped and it landed, and then there was like a little like dust cloud visual effect, and the creature took falling damage? Did anybody see that? Because that was fucking insane. I don't know if anybody saw that, but it was insane. Kalana says she messed around with it a bit. They're trying a lot of ambitious stuff with it. They better, Kalana, because if you're going to do your own VTT, then by God, make it awesome. At least make it the best possible way. Do things that no other VTT could even dream to doing, because you can be completely integrated with just your system. And again, the very brief snippet I saw of Codex suggested that was where, at least it looked really amazing. It looked great. They had this great parallax thing. I know there's some parallax stuff you can do with Foundry if you put in 17 modules and you're willing to do a shitload of work or whatever. But like the fact that the game understood, you know, that there was an elevation involved because they were on this tower, that it was grabbed, that the model was off the edge of the tower, but was still grabbed, so it didn't fall, but it cast a shadow automatically because it understood the distance. And then when the player clicked off the grab condition, it fell. Yeah, I can believe that, Jason. I can actually believe that. Thad says it does look like the lion's share of that Kickstarter money has gone to the VTT. Right? They decided they're like, look, we're not going to spend it on layout and color and colorful design in our book, but we're certainly going to make a great VTT. If you had to puck one right now, Starfinder 2 or Draw Steel. A lot of stuff going on there, Nick. Starfinder 2 or pick one. All right, so if I had to pick one right now, Starfinder 2 or Draw Steel. Wow. That's a great question. Honestly, these are both very tactical games. One's fantasy, one's science fiction. Starfinder 2, I think, is going to be my answer. And the reason I say that is because right now, this is the game that I want to play, which is Daggerheart, which is a fantasy game. So I don't really want to play two fantasy games. That would occupy too much of my space. So if I'm going to play a game, I'd rather play like a fantasy, very light tactical game, potentially even Theater of the Mind-ish or very loosely goosey tactical with miniatures. And then if I'm going to play a tactical game, I'll have it be a very completely different genre with a completely different feel. And that would definitely be Starfinder 2, right? So yeah, I think that would be my response. All right, well, let's get Envoy finished. It took us I don't think we were that distracted. It took us like 90 minutes to go through the Operative. Anyways, I think it goes without saying, the Operative, it gets a solid A for me. I mean, I think this is a great class. It seems really fun, effective. I would have a lot of fun playing it. I don't even like these kind of classes, but it's also a simpler class. I mean, this is a great class for somebody who just wants to do a lot of damage and be cool and be very John Wicky, and that's great. All right, so Envoy. You are a master influencer. You make your way through the universe with a charming smile, a quick wit, and a keen sense of self-preservation. You're a leader who motivates your teammates, pushes them past their limits, and helps them through tough spots. You excel at getting others to do what you want, but you're always ready to face trouble head on when things take a worse. You could be a con artist or a diplomat, a performer or a military officer. You might take on whatever role the situation demands. And this is a charisma class. Now, for those of you who may have played 3rd edition, you may be aware that D20 Modern and D20 Future typically had a charisma-based class, usually called something like the Noble or something along those lines, where it was a non-spell casting charisma class that basically represented not just an influencer, but a leader, a sort of a talker that wasn't just necessarily purely a peaceful diplomat. They could also be, pretty sweet and doing what they needed to do. They could kick ass, a little kick ass too. They were useful in combat is what I'm basically trying to say. It wasn't just a class that is just for social. So I'm hoping that is what we're going to get. Yes, Star Wars Saga Edition Nobles were great, Damien. They were excellent. It was an excellent class. It was an excellent edition. Of course, obviously, it was a precursor to 4th edition, which is why a lot of great ideas that they were testing out in Saga ended up in 4th edition. So I always liked the Warlord, because the Warlord was a charisma class. It was a diplomatic class. It had a lot of strong utility powers and the right stats and skills to be a powerful influencer, a powerful leader, but they were also really good at helping people out in combat. And I think that is something that's really awesome. Now, traditionally, we think of this role as being filled by the Bard and maybe the Rogue, but I don't think either of those roles are quite right, especially since the Bard is magical and in Pathfinder 2, strange and weird with occult magic and music. So we'll see. This has a potential to be really, really awesome. We get 8+ con hit points, and we've got one new key term, directive. Actions with this trait are special orders that provide benefits for your allies if they follow them. Your allies must be able to sense you to benefit from this directive. They always have the auditory or visual trait depending on how you inspire your allies. Very cool. We've talked about how all of the classes seem to have this little mini game played with them. With our Solarian, it was balancing between our two, not phases, what are they called? Attunements, photon and graviton. And then with our Witch Warper, it was sort of managing our paradox field, our quantum field, I should say, sorry. Our quantum field and making sure that we sustain that through anchoring actions or taking the sustain action. And then with the Operative, it's obviously based around the aim meta. And now with our Envoy, we get this kind of sort of mini game potentially of setting up directives that can benefit from our allies if they follow those conditions. So this will be really interesting to take a look at. And again, we're going to help our allies, benefit them, bolster them, harry our foes. During social encounter, we'll often be the character who is doing a lot of the talking, since we probably have a high charisma and the like. Okay, we are a trained in perception, trained in fort, expert in ref and will. So this is obviously our Operative was expert in perception, but this is the same as our Operative, trained in fort, expert in ref and will. So good save, better than the Witch Warper. So far, the Witch Warper has had the worst saves as the spellcaster class. They get a bunch of skills. So here's our skill monkey class. We get trained in one of the following skills, then an additional skill based on our leadership style, aka our subclass, and then we get 6+ int. Now I'm going to assume this is a charisma class, but it may also be a class that could benefit from having a little bit of int. So we could end up with maybe, potentially 9 or more trained skills, maxed out skills, basically. We do get martial weapons, which is neat. There's no qualification here, like only some martial weapons. No, we get all martial weapons, and we get light armor. Okay, neat. Now, it is going to be a charisma-based class. So that means that with light armor and a charisma-based class, we are likely to be an AC point or 2 behind what I'll call baseline standard ACs. Now, we do have 8 hit points, but being a charisma class means even if we put a 16 into our decks, we are going to be 1 point behind the 8 ball. And if we put a 14 into our decks, we're going to be 2 points behind the 8 ball. So something to keep in mind about that is we may not be as much of a frontliner as we might think we should be. Although we are an Envoy, so maybe we don't actually think that. But we'll see what we get here. This is what I mean when I talk about looking into the chassis of a class. But saves seem okay. Now, we are charisma-based, so that doesn't go to any of our 3 core stats. So note that, our saves aren't going to be, we don't have dex or wisdom or con as a key stat. So that means that the saves are going to suffer a little bit, even though we do have trained expert. All right, we pick our envoy directives, our leadership style. We get a feat at first level, and then we get a couple boosts throughout that. So let's take a look what we get here. We get our standard proficiencies, what we just talked about. We get our envoy directives. We encourage our allies with directives. This is an order that benefits allies who choose to follow it. They include a way for the envoy to lead by example by spending more actions for increased effects. You begin with a single directive. You can learn more through your class feats, and your leadership style. You can only issue a single directive each round. And unless otherwise noted, it lasts until the beginning of your next turn. So you gain the Get 'em envoy directive. And again, this is interesting. One of the things that we talked a lot about back in our PF1 day or PF2 days is we said, man, we wish there were more spells and abilities like Magic Missile and Heal that allow you to spend 1, 2, or 3 actions, giving you that versatility depending on what the situation is. And it looks like these directives all follow this protocol. So we can spend 1 or 2 actions. You single out an enemy for your allies to focus on. We pick a single enemy within 60 feet. You and our allies get +2 status bonus to attacks that target until the beginning of your next turn. So in that way, it's kind of like an Inspire Courage. But if we lead by example, we can spend 2 actions. Well, rather, basically, we can give them a directive for 1 action, or we can lead by example and spend 2 actions. Then we get to strike the target. And we gain a status bonus to this damage roll equal to our charisma modifier, which presumably is +4, which is a nice chunk of change. Regardless of whether the strike hits, you and your allies gain a +1 status bonus to damage on subsequent strikes made against the enemy until the start of your next turn. Increase this damage by 1 at 5, 10, 15, and 20. Now, this is pretty cool because basically we can spend 1 action to give everybody +1 to hit, or we can spend 2 actions to give everybody +1 to hit, to get us an attack, and to give our allies an additional bonus to damage. And we get to play that off and pick that off. That's pretty cool. And by the way, the strike doesn't seem to have to be melee or anything like that. The only restriction is that it has to be within 60 feet. So potentially we could even, shoot him. But, the idea of our leader going, get him, and lead by example by shooting the enemy that we want everybody to shoot at. And they don't have to shoot that enemy. But if they do, they get a +1 to hit. And we get a massive bonus to damage, which is going to be +4 up to +6 up to +7. Unfortunately, the bonus that we get is +1 status, and this bonus is status, so we don't stack with our own thing. But we're still getting a huge bonus to damage, which is fantastic. This is great, and we start with this. So great stuff, good stuff. At first level, we pick a leadership style. So this is basically our subclass. We've got From the Front. We've got From the Shadows. We've got Guns Blazing. These are great names. We've got In the Spotlight. And we have Infosphere Director. And we have Through Desperate Times. So that's a lot of interesting things. So I love the idea that it's like, what is our leadership style? This is great. Those are great names. So front line of battle, we get the up. So this is kind of like, with Warlord, right? Like, are you attack lord? Are you a Ka lord? Right? Are you a strength-based warlord, or are you a charisma-based warlord? For those of you who played 4th edition. You get athletics. You get medium armor, which is nice. If you're planning on being from the front line, we said that light armor is going to be kind of rough. Picking up medium armor is great because now we only need a point or 2 of dex to max out our AC baseline. And again, learning from the thing, it completely rescales everything, and now everything works off of light becomes medium. We also get a new directive, Into Position. Again, spending 1 to 2. We call on our allies to get out of a threat area or to close in on a threat. Select an enemy within 60 feet. Allies within the target's reach can step as a reaction. Allies within 30 feet of you and not adjacent to the reaction can stride, but must end closer to the target. So for one action, we pick an enemy, and all of our allies that aren't in melee with this enemy can move 30 feet. I'm sorry, any allies within 30 feet of the of us can stride as a reaction for free. Now, the restriction is they have to end closer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to move into melee with the creature, as long as they end up closer to the target than they started. So for one action and a couple of your allies' reactions, you could potentially give almost everyone in your party a free stride. Okay. If we use 2 actions, then we get to make a strike, which also causes them to focus their attention on us. So now the target gets a -1 penalty to attacks against other creatures full out, not just like while we move, but like until the start of our next turn. These are both very good. Again, we're getting a free strike. I mean, that's usually what you want to be doing in Pathfinder 2 or Starfinder 2 anyways, right? It's the strike meta, right? Strike is king. Wow. So that's pretty great. I mean, there's no save. There's no penalty. We don't even have to hit with this strike to give them a flat -1 circumstance penalty on attack rolls. And again, math is tight. Every point matters. I think that's really great. From the shadows, we get stealth. We also get coordinate ambush as a new directive. Designate an enemy creature within 60 feet and an ally within 60 feet. If the enemy or if the ally is hidden, undetected, or unnoticed, then the target is off guard until the end of the turn, instead of when they become visible to the target. Normally, when you attack from hidden or invisibility or undetected, you become immediately, the enemy is no longer off guard to you once you become visible. Instead, they get the whole turn to be, off guard, which could potentially be very powerful, especially if you had like someone like a ghost operative or something. However, if we use 2 actions, then we get to hide or sneak. And then until the start of our turn, we can strike the enemy as a reaction the first time the ally that we targeted attacks our designated enemy. So it's like we set up our own opportune backstab. That's so sick. And like even in the narrative, right? Like this is where you can imagine you like pointing to your, to your foe, to your friend, to who's hiding, to wait till you get into position. Your guy gets into position, hides around the corner, and then you execute. Your ally comes out from hiding, shoots the enemy, and then while they're confused, you boost around as a reaction and shoot them for free. That's pretty cool. And of course, remember, since you're striking them as a reaction, it's an off-turn action, so you don't get multiple attack penalty. So, like, you could shoot them with your first action, no map. Then use your remaining 2 actions to do a lead by example coordinate ambush, granting your ally the bonus, then granting you 2 actions in which one to hide, and then wait in hiding. And then when your ally targets them, then you get to shoot again, but this time with no map because it's an off-turn reaction. So pretty sweet. Yeah, huge combo with a striker, skirmisher, operative, or a Solarian as well. All right, maybe you lead by guns blazing. You get acrobatics, you get incredible initiative as a bonus feat. That's sick. And you get the ready arms directive. You and all allies can interact to draw, switch hands, or swap actions. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, maybe it comes up more often in Starfinder 2 because people have all sorts of weird, wonky weapons. It's not just bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, right? You might have like, oh, everybody needs to bust out their laser rifle, or everybody needs to bust out their arc rifle or whatever. But generally, I found these to not be that really useful. If you use 2 actions, you can strike, area fire, or auto fire with a weapon that you drew or strike. And if your strike hits, then an ally can make a strike against the target as a reaction. So, that is nice. And yes, I mean, there's ammo, there's some other things, Now, to be fair, Sweet Threat, you guys can tell me, I don't know exactly how the rules. Does this rule, like, what is the rule in the game for reloading? And would this interact, switch hands, or swap weapons let us reload as a reaction? Because that would be kind of cool. Either way, I do like the lead by example. In the spotlight, this is more of our like personality-based ones. We get performance, and we get impressive performance, the bonus feat, and we get dance partner. Nominate yourself and an ally within only 10 feet. Then we stride or step. Then your ally can stride or step as a reaction as long as they end the same distance or closer to you than you started. This is a weird one because it's like, what are we're dancing in the middle of a combat? Like, what is going on? You know, and it's even phrased as every good performer needs an accompanying act. All right, this one's just kind of like, I mean, it's cool. I get to move, you get to move. Lead by example. If you use 2 actions, you and your selected ally count any enemies that you both threaten as being flanked until the start of your next turn. So we become like 5E flanking. Your ally becomes concealed against ranged strikes made by the creatures within 10 feet until the start of your next turn, or the ally moves, whichever comes first. Yeah. I mean, this is okay. So this is a movement-based one, ironically. It's the performance one. It's in the spotlight, but it's very movement-based. It's very heavily movement-based. Infosphere Director. You control, this is the TAC Lord. You get computers. You get digital assessment. You choose a creature within 100 feet and make a recall knowledge. When you succeed at identifying your target with recall knowledge, you note a resistance or immunity in addition to any other benefits, which I tend to give anyway, so this wouldn't do much in my game. And then if you spend 2 actions, you also get to strike. You and your allies get a +1 circumstance bonus to AC against attacks made by the target until the start of your next turn. If it has the tech trait, it has to make a fort save. On a failure, it becomes glitching 1. Well, this all depends on how useful and required recall knowledge is in your game. I mean, obviously, it's 1 action to make a recall knowledge. This one's weird to me because this doesn't really seem to work with your allies. So this being a directive feels really weak to me. Not that because it's like weak, but just because like it doesn't involve my allies, and I don't like that as much. It's just me making a recall knowledge check. Through desperate times. Maybe our leadership dies through desperate times. This is our healing lord. We get our Ka lord. We get battle medicine as a bonus feat at level 1. That's cool. We get medicine trained, and then we get keep on keeping on. Great name. You push your allies to keep fighting. Select an ally within 30 feet. Until the start of your next turn, that ally increases the next healing they receive by an amount equal to your charisma modifier plus half your level. So, you know, we round up, right? So like +5, or did we round up? I don't remember. We had +5-ish hit points, which is not bad. And then by the end of the game, we'd be adding like +17, +18, which isn't like incredible. If we use 2 actions, though, we battle medicine the target, and then they only become immune to battle medicine for 10 minutes instead of 1 day. That is awesome. This is how we have a non-magical healing character. That's cool. We can battle medicine basically on repeat. You know, everybody gets a battle medicine per fight. And not just a battle medicine, but because we get to use 2 actions and we hit them with the keep on keeping on, it's a pretty decent battle medicine as well. You know, 2d8 plus, 4 or 5 is a lot of healing. And again, it's not magical, even though what is battle medicine? No one knows. But that is really cool. I mean, you can even see the difference in the cooldown there from 1 day to 10 minutes. So that is, yeah, you get some healing and you get some healing and you get some healing. So I think that's really cool. And it's a great, I was wondering, I'm like, are they going to make a healer in this game? How does everyone, is the mystic going to be the only person who can really heal people? And the answer is, well, obviously, no. We know the Witch Warper could also have Soothe, but this is great. This is great. If you want to be the healing, what we would call in 4E the Ka Lord, the charisma-based warlord. So those are great. And I like the directives a lot. Those are really fun. The only one I didn't really like was the Infosphere one, but I thought the rest of them were really, really cool and neat. And I love that it's this 1-2 action thing that if you spend the actions, you get the attack. I would think it's hardly ambiguous. Because it says you specifically take the battle medicine active. It doesn't mention doing anything differently from the battle medicine. Okay. we get more. So we really are a skill monkey because we get more skill increases than other class. At second level and every level, we get a skill increase. So we are like the rogue in that respect. That's cool that they kind of separated the rogue's abilities into sort of envoy and operative, which I think is great, you know, separating out the damage dealing class from the skill class. I like that. That's one of the reasons I don't like the rogue. What am I supposed to be? A skill user that's like a death assassin? Why does that make sense? I don't even know. So we get a lot of skill. We get skill training every level. At level 3, we get adaptive talent. During daily prep, pick a skill feat. Skill feats are okay. That you meet the prerequisites for, and we get the skill feat. So this is just like the fighter's ability to sort of long prep your daily prep certain feats. You know, and now we can kind of do that. Apparently, I don't know what I'm looking at here. Oh, I didn't have the medic. Oh, apparently my little soundboard here doesn't have the medic. Oh, please state the nature of your medical emergency. It's a very voider. Anyways, and then we can get more skill feats. So yeah, you know, skill feats are cool. You know. You can use this to pick up temporary effects such as multilingual to temporarily learn a language. So very flexible, very versatile. But again, it depends on how, you know, skill feats are. Some of them are really good. Some of them are okay. Some of them are kind of crap. Wise to the game. At level 3, game recognizes game. You get a +1 status bonus to perception DCs against attempts to feint or lie to you and attempts to divert your attention. Okay, this is a nothing burger. Sorry. I mean, this is not terrible. +1 status bonus to will DC against emotion effects. But, like, nobody's. This is going to come up very rarely. Also, because this game doesn't allow you to actually manipulate your players through the game mechanics, this is what I've experienced 99 times out of 100. Absolutely. You can totally trust me. I can completely assure you the cargo that you're about to transport was made by some local farmers and has absolutely nothing stolen or illegal. My player. Do I believe him? Sure. I'll try to lie against you. No. You completely believe that he's telling the truth. And then the player goes, yeah, no, I don't believe him anyways. Like, I don't care what the check was. I, Derek, don't believe him. So I'm just going to not believe him, even though he passed his feint DC. This is a really weird way. Plus, I hate the way that they do feint and lying and with a static passive DC. I know it's like good for other things, but it's just really weird and awkward. And I basically hate all these rules in Pathfinder 2. So that's just me. Anyways, improved mastery. Now, you get a lot of cool class features here. For free action, once per day, you're about to attempt a skill check using a skill you don't have master proficiency in and you haven't rolled yet. Your instincts see you through and you gain master proficiency with the triggering skill. Keep in mind, you don't even have to be trained in this skill to get master proficiency. So master proficiency is +6 plus your level 5. So that's potentially a +11 to a skill check over one that you have a 0 in. I actually think this can come, I mean, it's only once a day, but I actually think this could come up more often than you think it would, because there's always like that one weird skill that you'll never use again for the entire campaign. And it just comes up that one time you need to make it, usually like once a day, maybe once or twice a session at most. And you can just crush it with a master check, adding your full level bonus, because it says you gain master proficiency. So it's not like the bardic thing where you don't get to, where it's just like, oh, you add your level, but you're still basically going to +0. No, if you're master proficiency, that's 6 plus your level. So that's a huge bonus. All right, we get expertise. Whenever you attack the target of your get 'em, you get critical spec for your weapons. That's cute. We pick up fort expertise at level 7 finally, so we're triple expertise at 7. At 7, we also get a new directive. So we're going to have a lot of cool directives from our class, from our subclass, and presumably from some of our feats. It has the healing. So everybody gets a little bit of healing, at least at level 7. Steel yourselves, 1 to 2. It's a directive, once per hour. Encouraging your allies to brace for impact. Allies within 60 feet who can sense you can spend 1 action on their turn to brace for impact. A creature that braces for impact gains temporary HP equal to your charisma modifier plus half your level for 1 minute. So it's going to use a lot of actions out of the party because you're spending 1 action, and then everybody can choose to spend 1 action to brace for impact. We're level 7, so half our level rounded up is 4. Our charisma modifier here is probably still 4, so they're gaining 8 temp. And then if we spend 2 actions, you and any ally who braces for impact also gets a +1 status bonus to saving throws against effects that deal damage for 1 minute. Ugh. We're spending 2, they're spending 1. Everybody's just getting a +1 status bonus for a minute. I mean, it's effectively like us casting, you know, like a protection spell, but like if the whole party does this, you just used 6 actions. It's a lot of actions for a small amount of temp and a tiny bonus. That's kind of rough. I don't know if the action economy there would work out as well. I mean, if maybe randomly somebody has a 3rd action they're not doing with anyways, but it's, you know. And if this frequency was like more often than once an hour, we can only do this once a fight. Hell, we might only be able to do this once every other fight. And it's temporary hit points, so you kind of have to know that an attack is about to come anyways. I mean, at least the temporary hit points last for a minute, but yeah. Kevin says this class is so anemic. This class is balanced around such mid principles while the operative is throwing around wall running reflex shots. Well, they just have to be so careful with the way that they balance bonuses and healing in this game. It's going to be tough regardless. We get some proficiency increases at 9. We get hidden agenda. When a creature rolls a critical success to sense motive against you. And again, I get that these are rules in the game. I just feel like a lot of people don't use them or they don't matter that much. Or a skill check to gather information or recall knowledge about your secrets. Like, honestly, how often as a I mean, and I really mean this. I've been playing Pathfinder 2 for 5 years. I don't think I've ever had an NPC make a gather information check about one of the PC's secrets. Ever. I don't think I've ever had a monster make a recall knowledge check about the PCs ever. So if that's something that you're doing a lot and you're really sticking to it, props. But I can tell you that this ability right here would literally have never come up once in the entire 5 years I've been playing Pathfinder 2. That's just me. For all I'm cheating. I mean, you know, but it's just one of those things where it's like, it's not even a question of cheating. It's not like I pretend that the monsters had information. I just don't care. Like, it's just not relevant to my game, you know? Jason says, if anything, I'm actively trying to make less work for my DMing in PF2E. I don't need more useless stuff. Yes, it's a hard resistance. It's another ribbon. I agree. It's a flavor ribbon for sure. Perception goes to mastery. We get mastery and will, and the upgrade and success. We get the will evasion. At level 11, we can now do our improvised mastery twice per day. That's where we can just pick any skill and we get mastery in it. Additionally, the first time per day, when you roll a nat 1, you don't automatically reduce it. So it's basically not a crit fail. You just roll your normal result. Okay. Armor expertise. Ooh. At level 13, we get an additional reaction. Wow, for free. Okay. When you aren't directing your allies, you focus on the situation's shifting circumstances, readying to react. At the end of each of your turns, you gain one additional reaction, which you can use before the beginning of your next turn for any envoy reaction. Now, we didn't see any reactions, so they must be gained from our class features. Legendary improvisation triggers on skill checks using a skill that you don't have legendary proficiency in, and now it grants legendary proficiency. And we pick up evasion, reflex mastery. We get legendary will save plus double specialization, legendary perception, inscrutable, more stuff about people sensing motive against us or critical information, more ribbon abilities. Silver tongue. We get once per day, we roll a skill check for any of the following skills that we're legendary in, and we get a free reroll. So we get a free hero point once per day for one of those 4 skills of deception, diplomacy, intimidation, or whichever one we gain from our leadership skill. And lastly, our ultimate ability is at level 19, we get light armor mastery. So there's a lot of class features here. Now, the key thing is, remember, we're getting a lot of features on top of stuff that, like, there's a lot of class features here, including ones that are, quite frankly, they don't really cost a lot. You know what I mean? Like, we're not losing anything by gaining these, like, hidden agenda abilities. They kind of threw them in, and they don't really matter. Hardrick, why no performance? Well, because it says it's deception, diplomacy, intimidation, or your leadership skill. So if we are the dancing partner one, then our leadership skill was performance, and then it would apply to performance. Otherwise, it would not. Depends on our specialization. Okay. Let's take a look at some of the feats. We'll look at the level 1 and level 2 feats, and then maybe some of the ones that we're feeling are cool. All right. Go to ground. So we do see that there's some envoy abilities here. 1 to 2. You succinctly direct your allies to find cover by any means. You and all allies within 60 feet count any form of lesser cover as standard cover. That's cool. Lead by example. If you use 2 actions, you get to take cover, and then any allies within 60 feet can take cover as a reaction. That's awesome. This is actually really cool. Again, especially in a range and cover meta. I mean, that means that if your allies are in cover and you're in cover, you can spend 2 actions and you can increase your AC bonus from 2 to 4. And you can increase all of your allies' AC bonuses from 2 to 4, or from 1 to 2, or from 0 to 2 if they are near a place where they could take cover, right? Take cover requires them to be in cover or near an object behind which they could take cover. Wow. Not to mention just the quick standard upgrade here as well. I think that's really cool. And, you know, and we can still shoot. Pew, pew. Pardon me while I burst into flames. Quip. Size up. Take them alive. Watch out. All right, so let's take a look at these. We'll start with Quip. We have to be trained in intimidation. It is a reaction. So again, we did expect that because at level 13, the envoy gets a bonus envoy reaction that they can use every turn, that we were going to see a lot of class feats that were going to give us reactions. So, Quip. A creature within 30 feet is damaged by an ally's strike. As a reaction, attempt to demoralize the triggering creature. That's pretty cool. I mean, obviously, you typically would want to demoralize them before your ally strike them, but getting to demoralize from a charisma-based class, which means you're good at intimidating, for free, not for free, but as a reaction, is pretty dang good. Now, what you do have to make sure, though, that you do, is that you don't fuck up the initiative order, right? Because if the person who strikes last, right before the enemy goes, if you demoralize that enemy, then at the end of their turn, their frightened goes down by 1, and it will have done nothing. So you do want to make sure that your initiative is set up in a way, in a way that's pretty strong. But it could be very powerful. Free demoralize, basically. Love it. And for a reaction. Pardon me. You're trained in deception. You distract your foes with a clever comment as you maneuver around them. You can use deception instead of acrobatics to tumble through, and you use their will DC instead of their reflex DC. If you successfully tumble through using deception, the foe whose space you pass through is suppressed, that's a -1 to attack rolls, until the end of its next turn. Now, I'm actually curious about this. People who have played a lot more Pathfinder 2 than me. And I've always had rogues or rogue-like people in my parties, mostly. Or at the very least, flanking's a big deal, right? Making people flat-footed or off guard, as we call it now, is a big deal. How often have you used, I'm curious, how often have people used tumble through in your PF2 game? The only reason I ask is because it doesn't really seem to come up a lot in my games. The only time I ever saw people tumbling through is literally when there was like a large creature in a 10-foot wide hallway and they wanted to flank it. And the only way to flank it was to, tumble through its space to get to the other side of it so that they could flank it. But other than that, I never really had it come up that often. So I'm curious how often it came up in your guys' parties. But it is still kind of a cool way to sort of use a skill substitution. You get the suppression, which is kind of neat. You're using deception and will instead of reflex and acrobatics. I think it's fine. That is true. In my Abomination Vaults, I did double the size of every single thing in Abomination Vaults. Every hallway, all I did is I took the Foundry settings and I halved them because Abomination Vaults was way too fucking small. Well, but Karama, I'm saying if you don't have the thing, obviously if you have a rider, that gives you an additional benefit, like if you're a swashbuckler and you have to tumble through somebody just so you can gain panache, or if you have the feat that makes them off guard, for sure, of course, you're going to do that. That makes sense because you're doing that for the thing. I just meant tumble through to tumble through. Now, Boothby says that their group it's come up hardly in their group, but Boothby, I don't know if that's actually a stirring rendition because your group isn't notoriously, maybe not the most optimal group in the history of Pathfinder 2. Anyways, this is okay, but I probably wouldn't take this. Size up once per hour. It's an exploration activity. You spend 1 minute on an individual or 10 minutes researching an individual or the infosphere, or 1 hour networking and gathering information. This subject is your asset. If you assess your asset via observation, you don't need to know their identity. But if you assess your asset via research or networking, you have to know their identity. You get a +1 bonus to some skills. I'm not taking that one. All right. You do get the benefits of the 2-action get 'em when using the 1-action get 'em. It's kind of like follow a lead. It's kind of like devise a stratagem, I guess. I get it. It's more of like the investigator kind of thing. It just seems like a lot of work to You can maintain a number of assets equal to your charisma modifier. So the idea is that, you're playing a more investigative game. You're having a bunch of people that you keeping tabs on, that you're following them, very, very, Casablanca-esque, very, your private eye, outside the bar with the trench coat pulled up high, smoking a cigarette, watching them with beady, with the eyes underneath the brim pulled down low. Here's looking at you, kid. Very, very, very space detective. Yeah. I agree with Damien. It's a game-dependent feat. It could be very good or it could be completely useless. Like, no offense to Rick. Rick, I'm sure you're not watching this. But if you're playing Rick S.'s Starfinder game, Rick S.'s Traveler games are military sci-fi. Lock and load, right? You're never doing this in Rick S.'s Starfinder game. All right. So if we take them alive, we get a new directive, which again is 1 to 2 actions. You urge your allies to take them down without any loss of life. Until the beginning of your next turn, you and your allies can add the non-lethal trait to your attacks with weapons and to your spells that deal damage and don't have the death or void trait. If you did by 2 actions, you also get to make a free strike, which also does a bonus charisma damage. And if you crit that attack, an ally within 30 feet can get a free attack, a free strike with a reaction using the non-lethal trait. Now, I am curious. Attacks with this weapon are non-lethal and are used to knock out creatures unconscious instead of kill them. And I'm curious about this. In any game I've ever played, if the PCs knock a monster to 0, I don't even track if they're dying or dead. I just make them dead. And if the PCs say I just knocked them out, I just have them be knocked out. Am I crazy? Am I like, I mean, I know it's one of those things that I guess there's rules for. That I'm supposed to keep track of the dying condition of every single unconscious monster on the battlefield. But I don't think I've ever done that once ever. So this is another one of those feats that follows the rules as written, but Derek would never have ever done this. Ever. In a million years. Ever. But that's just me. So it's not a knock against it. It's just, I mean, maybe if somebody's like trying to make their like laser pistol shot non-lethal, I might be like, nah, dude, you crit them. You crit them in the face with a laser pistol, they're just dead. But like if somebody's just like attacking somebody, I don't care if their trait doesn't have the non-lethal condition, That's what I'm saying. I would never give somebody a -2 penalty for non-lethal. That's just not something I even remotely care about. And lastly, our level 1 feat, we get Watch Out. A creature targets an ally within 60 feet with an attack, and you give them a warning, giving them a +2 circumstance bonus to their AC against the triggering attack. So you basically can give them a temporary shield bonus of +2 circumstance bonus to their AC. But it's after they target them, so before they've even made the roll. It's a reaction, which is nice. And it does lead to Look Alive and That'll Show 'em, which could potentially be some cool higher level feats. But, and you're probably going to get to use this reaction every single round because chances are probably pretty good that somebody's going to be getting attacked and they're going to be within 60 feet of you. But the problem is it is a circumstance bonus. And that means that if our ally has cover and we yell at them to watch out, it doesn't actually benefit them, unfortunately. So I don't know why. I know it's a circumstance bonus because that's the way it works, but it would have been cooler if it was a status bonus because then it would have worked with the cover meta that is going to be pretty common in this game, presumably. So that means that it doesn't really work with cover, which I don't like. Anyways. Well, it's hard for me not to say that I would probably go with Quip. That's pretty cool. I like Quip a lot. Watch Out's not bad. But Go to Ground is also really nice. So yeah, I like Go to Ground or Quip. Those are probably my 2 favorites. Again, both combative feats, no doubt. But it's like, I feel like our class has enough built in with all of its skills and its ability to freely pick a skill that we don't even have and become a master in it for a single roll. And we get all this like assurances and extra skills. Like we don't really need feats to make us better. Also, we get bonus skill trainings, like, and we get bonus skill feats. We don't need all that. All right, so let's pick a couple. Oh yeah, we want to pick some level 2 ones as well. So acquire asset. So this is an upgrade to size up. So they really want you to go all in on that whole like gaining assets and being able to go space detective on them. Change of plans. Don't you die on me. Get in there. Search high and low. So we've got a couple feats to look at. Acquire asset. This is a prerequisite of size up. It's 1 action and is only and flourish. You assess a foe in the middle of combat. Make a melee or range strike against a creature that isn't your asset. On a hit, they become your asset, which does nothing, by the way. And once they're your asset, you get like a +1 to recall knowledge checks against them, and you get a +1 to like deception checks. But by itself, them becoming your asset does nothing. So. Well, right, Kevin. It gives us a 1 action discount to make them our asset, which, again, doesn't really do nothing. I guess you get the get 'em discount. I guess the question is, how useful is size up just for this? If we think that gaining the benefits of the 2 action get 'em for 1 action get 'em is worth it, then maybe there's a build there, you know, because now what we get to do is for 1 action, we strike. They become our asset. Now that they're our asset, we can spend 1 action to do the 2 action get 'em. Maybe that's a build, you know. I mean, it probably is pretty good. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you could just ignore all the rest of the shit about them being like, you know, space detective and just turned it into pile drop, you know, gang bang that guy. That's what that's what it's called. Oh, they're my asset. Nope. It's just the guy we've decided to gang bang. That's what it is. Anyways, change of plans. Reaction. So there are a lot of reactions to these class features, which is nice. The target of your get 'em is reduced to 0 hit points. And the requirement is that you use get 'em against a creature on your last turn. When the target you directed your allies to take down falls unconscious or is destroyed, you quickly direct them to another target. You use get 'em against a new target following all the normal targeting restrictions for get 'em. You don't count as leading by example against this new target. So wait a second. Oh, okay, so if we kill the enemy, we get to swap the +1 bonus to a new enemy. And we're not leading by example. I mean, it's okay. I don't know if I would use a feat and a reaction to do that. It's a very circumstantial circumstance. You know, because like once it's my turn again, I can just get him again. You know what I mean? Like, get him only lasts 1 turn anyways. The beginning of my next turn, not even the end of my next turn, the beginning of my next turn. So, yeah, it's not horrible. It's not great either. So I agree with you, Kyle. Oh, we were just looking at him. Don't you die on me. 1 action. You encourage your ally to hang on and keep going despite life-threatening wounds. Select an adjacent dying ally. Reduce that target's dying value by 1. If that would reduce their dying value to 0, they lose the dying condition, don't increase their wounded condition, and remain unconscious. They then become immune to don't you die on me for 1 hour. So it doesn't even heal them? It's like a free stabilize, but it still takes an action? You just don't have to make a check? I'm going to pass on this one. Yeah, I guess. I guess it also technically stabilizes them without increasing their wounded condition. But the thing about getting your wounded condition increased is it doesn't really matter because once you treat wounds after the fight is over, you eliminate the wounded condition. Yeah, no, I'll pass. I'll pass on Don't You Die on Me. PC, I choose you. Get in there. All right, so we got a directive, 1 to 2 actions. You urge your allies to hustle into the fight or to get the hell out of the way. I added to get the hell out of the way. Until the beginning of your next turn, you and all allies within 100 feet who can sense you gain a +5 status bonus to speed. So party-wide speed buff. Additionally, this goes up to 10 feet at 7, 15 feet at 12, and 20 feet speed bonus at 17 for 1 action. Party-wide speed buff. Accelerando. Pretty good. Wasn't that what it was called? Accelerando. Lead by example, though. If you spend 2 actions, you, the envoy, can step or stride, And then every one of your allies within 100 feet can also step or stride half their speed as a reaction. Now, that's a lot of movement, and that's a big bonus. And, you know, for 2 actions, we're getting a step or a stride at an increased speed bonus, and then all of our allies can step or stride half their speed as a reaction. So it is consuming their reactions, potentially could be, you know, quote unquote costly in terms of actions, but reactions are kind of a variable action cost. But but on top of that, they just get the flat bonus to speed as well. That's a big bonus to speed. 5 feet's not bad, but by the time we're, you know, 7th level and it's 10 feet, 15 feet, I mean, that's a lot, especially when it's halving. But when their speed is now 40 or 50 feet and they can, you know, stride for 25 feet as a reaction on your turn, that's pretty cool. Again, for moving, repositioning, and it's only a level 2 feat. Yeah, that's pretty good. Again, I like that it puts a lot of the choices into your fellow players' hands. 1 to 2 actions, search high and low. This is another directive. You alert your allies to find hidden things, coordinating their efforts. You and your allies get +2 circumstance bonuses to seek. As your envoy level increases, it becomes +3, +4, +5 at 17th level. If you lead by example, you get to seek, and then each of your allies can seek as a reaction. So those of you who may remember this, we did a 3-part video series on stealth in Pathfinder 2. And that included the very detailed rules about how seeking is supposed to work, right? Down to the cone seek and the burst seek and all of that seek rules that actually involve hidden and not undetected and unnoticed, the whole shebang. And generally speaking, that has been there for a long time. Most of the comments on that video equate to something around the lines of, we've never used these rules ever. The seek rules are totally stupid. I don't care about them at all, is what it usually comes down to. Logan, take care, buddy. Thanks for stopping by. We'll be finishing up here soon, too. We're already into the feats of the Envoy. Soon. I mean, it'll be a 3-hour stream. Somehow I feel like a 3-hour. Our streams are supposed to be 2 hours. Our streams used to be 7 to 9. And then somehow, like now when they go 3 hours or 3.5 hours, people are like, oh, it was a short stream. Kevin summarizes this by saying, God, I hate seek. And it's a whole thing, by the way. It's a 1 action to seek. You might have to seek multiple times. You have to choose a direction to send out your conic seek. It's a whole thing. It's the way it's supposed to work. I just don't know that anyone actually does that. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I just find that most people draw the line at some place in PF2. And one of them is the seek line. Jason says, yeah, my table has never used seek. Boothby says, stealth always feels like a pain in the ass in any game. Mostly, yes. True. So again, if you're using seek and you're using a lot of hide and, you know, if you're playing a very cover heavy game and people are, a lot of the NPCs are ducking behind cover, taking hide actions, taking sneak actions, going from being hidden or going from being behind cover to hidden, from hidden to unnoticed, right? Or undetected, whichever one it is, where you don't know what square they're in anymore. You know they're there, but you don't know what square they're in. You have to start guessing, you know, you're trying to think, and they're moving between cover and cover, you know, from pillar to post, behind that council, popping up behind a stack of deuterium barrels or whatever. If you're playing like that and you're really leaning into everybody's hiding and seeking, and it's like a really tense, you know, action scene. Also, seek is a secret roll. So that means like the GM is just back there, just rolling a ton of seek checks against themselves and trying to figure out every single person that you can now see, maybe. But then you also have to tell, like, okay, Hardrick, you see them, you notice them, and you see them. But nobody else pay attention to what I just said because you didn't get that. Boothby, you see that person, but not that person, but you might see that person. And you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to attack that square that Hardrick saw. No, you can't do that because Hardrick didn't use the point out action, which is a thing, by the way, in Pathfinder 2, to point to a square on the battlefield so that you know where he knows, where they know that a creature is hidden that you don't know. So what I'm going to need you to do, Boothby, is guess a square, but pretend like you didn't just hear what I told Hardrick about where the monster actually is hidden. But pretend like you don't know, but then guess a square. And of course, if you guess the square that he's actually in, I'll know you're cheating. So it just doesn't work, like functionally, like at a table. It just doesn't work, in my opinion. I don't even know if it works on a VTT. So, anyways. Not a fan of that one. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some cool feats in there. So I like that. I got to give Starfinder like a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 on the names. Not in the face. It's just such a great, it's a reaction, so I already love it. Hang in there. Okay, fantastic. Cheer up has the healing trait. I want to take a look at that one. Got him. I love that one. That'll show him. I'm loving these. Master plan. Wow, these really are named after fucking Pokemon. You can do it. Get them. Endlessly adaptive and true leader. These are our level 20 feat capstones. Okay, so we're going to take a look at about 8 or 9 feats here. All right, so we got a reaction. Not in the face. A creature targets you with a melee attack. You wave your arms to shield your face, looking meek and pitiful. Make a deception check. Oh, it's the gnome ability. Oh, okay. It's the gnome ability. So if you make a success, then they get a penalty to that triggered attack roll. I was kind of hoping it would be more than the gnome ability. The gnome ability was fine, but I don't exactly remember what the gnome ability was. But it's a gnome ancestry feat or something like that, where you can like look cute or something, and then they can't attack you, or they have a penalty to attack you. But still, good name. Oh, you know what? You're right. I said they're like Pokemon names. You're right. They're more like motivational posters because they've got like hang in there, you can do it. You're absolutely right. You know, it's just the cat hanging from the branch. All right, you have to be an expert in diplomacy, and this has the healing trait. You encourage yourself or an ally. It's one action to hang in there, psyching them up, gaining them temporary hit points. Oh, cool. So this reads a lot like a healing check or a treat wounds check or a battle medicine check. But instead of using medicine, it uses diplomacy. It's definitely ranged, 30 feet. You can raise the DC if you have higher levels of proficiency, expert, master, and legend, and that gives you more and more temporary hit points. So, for example, if you make a legendary check, then you grant 10 extra temporary hit points. And if you succeed on this DC, they gain temporary hit points equal to their level plus your charisma modifier. And if you make a legendary check, that's plus 10. So a legendary hang in there for one action, which is not a flourish, by the way. If you succeed at that DC 40 diplomacy check, then you would be giving them at, well, let's just say level 15, like 32, 31 charisma. So it's like battlefield medicine with charisma, but with, but it's temporary hit points instead of permanent hit points. And it uses the same kind of scaling. Damien says double their level, but I don't see anything about that. Oh, that's on a crit success, Damien. I'm just assuming a normal success. But yes, if you critically succeed, it's double their level. Now, what's interesting is, why would I ever do the DC 40 check when I could crit to get double their level? I think I would almost always go with the DC 20 check so that I like auto crit. And then I would just give them double their level and hit points, which would be like 40 temp for one action at level whatever, 20. I mean, maybe there's some math to figure out there. Either way, this could be pretty good. I mean, this is neat. And it's one action. It's ranged. It's temp. Assurance diplomacy. nice little busted combo there. That's pretty good. Now, by the way, if you fail, okay, they last for 1 minute. They become immune for 1 day. Okay, so you can only use it for 1 day. I don't know if this is my. Nope. We were so close. Man, it is like Battlefield Medicine. Immune 1 day, rough. Why is it 1 hour? This should say 1 hour. This should be 1 hour. Because, see, I read this here, and I assumed that meant that the whole thing was for 1 hour. But it's 1 day. Man. I thought it should be 1 hour. Maybe there's like an improvement to it, but I'd hate to have to burn 2 feats on it. I mean, this is really strong and it's cool, so obviously they have to nerf it. And healing is this big problem that they have, even though the heal spell exists, but I don't know. Anyways. It's good. It's cool. I just wish that, unlike Battlefield Medicine, at least with Battlefield Medicine, I can like convince myself like, oh, you can only do it to them once a day because, I don't know, you can only stitch somebody up so much. It's physical. But like, this is just mentally like, hyping them up. And so it feels weird that it's like on a 1 day cooldown. All right. Cheer Up is a level 8 feat, which is a healing. You have to be trained in medicine. It's 1 action. You encourage an ally to overcome their ailments. They reduce one of the following conditions of their choice by 2: clumsy, enfeebled, frightened, sickened, or stupefied, and then they become immune for 1 day. Now that's pretty cool. This is a lesser restoration kind of effect, whatever it's called now in the remastered. I forgot what it's called. This I'm bothered less by it being immune for 1 day, because if you could just spam this out, these effects would never be a penalty again. But reducing frightened by 2 before your ally takes their turn, and reducing sickened by 1 or 2 is massive. Sickened is a pain in the ass to get rid of. It eats up a ton of actions. They had to make an additional DC. Being able to just get rid of that, and there's no check. You just pat them on the back, and they're good to go. That's great. And again, 1 action, not a flourish. That's pretty cool. Patting on the back, the perfect cure for vomiting. I agree. All right. Got him. All right. Level 10. It's a free action once per round. An ally's strike hits the target of your get him. You provide a quick follow-up to your directive, encouraging your ally when they successfully have hit your target. They gain a status bonus to damage equal to your charisma modifier. So you get him, you got him. The only thing I don't like about this is the get him. Oh, that's, I guess that if we did the 1 action version, this would be better, because the 2 action version already gives them a status bonus to the damage. Now it does scale up, but if you did the 1 action version, they don't get any bonus to damage. So if you hit them once per round, you go get him, and then they hit him, and you're like, got him, and you had an additional bonus in damage. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I don't know if it's worth a level 10 feat, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. The name alone is worth good. It's a free action. You can't be too mad about that. It's an extra. The problem is if we're adding our charisma modifier. So we're level 10. Our charisma modifier is 20. So we're at a +5. A level 10 feat to occasionally add, assuming we're doing this all the time, to add +5 damage. I don't know if that's like super huge. Anyways, level 12, that'll show him. So this is based off of that watch out reaction, which is all the way back from level 1. This is the one that gave them a +2 circumstance bonus to a 1 attack, which we said might be kind of useless because circumstance bonuses don't stack with cover. But this is an upgrade to that. When you warn an ally of an attack, you follow up with a shot. The first time each round that you use your watch out reaction, you can make a melee or ranged strike against that triggering creature. If you hit, the target becomes suppressed. Okay, so now we're giving them +2 actions, and we get to make a follow-up attack as a reaction. Okay, that's pretty good. Free action, so you can do it on every hit. Yeah, the problem, Damien, is you can only do it once per round. So it's a free action, but it's only once per round. So we can do it every round, but it's not quite as good as +5 to everybody. I mean, getting a free bonus shot isn't the worst thing in the world, so I don't hate that. Master Plan is level 14. During our daily preparations, we can review stratagems with up to 5 allies. Later, you can quickly advise your allies on your scheme using the reaction below, a new plan. So basically, we gain a new reaction that can work with people who we prepared with during our long daily prep. An ally you reviewed stratagems with is about to make an attack roll or a skill check. Roll twice and take the better. That ally then becomes immune to your new plan until daily preparations. Now, this is cool because you're doing this with up to 5 allies, basically everybody in your party. So you basically get advantage 5 times a day with your 5 allies. And again, it's either a skill check or an attack roll, and you basically get them to roll with advantage. Now, that ally can no longer be used new plan, but all the rest of your allies can. So you can use this with each of your allies, granting them advantage, which I think is very powerful, especially in a crit fishing game like PF2. So this is pretty cool. You can do it. All right. This is a flourish action that has no action type. So that must be a typo. Your last action was a 1-action directive. So if we did a 1-action directive, we can motivate an ally within 60 feet to lead by an example. As a free action, okay, so it's a free action, that ally can immediately perform the lead by example actions of your last actions. Oh, okay. So, cool. We basically make one of our allies do the lead by example part of the lead by example, which is usually some sort of strike. So instead of us doing the leading by example, right, we have somebody else in our party. So now we're getting full lazy lord status. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, a lazy lord was a term that referred to a warlord in 4th edition who basically gave all of their actions and attacks away to other party members and actually like never made any attack rolls themselves. They just gave their actions away to like other characters, letting like the strikers make all the attack rolls and, you know, letting everybody who needed them take their actions, take their moves. Okay. So it's another date. It's a 1-action. Okay. So we spend 1 action to do a 1-action directive. Then we spend 1 action to use you can do it. And then that ally, as a free action, that ally can immediately perform the lead by example action. So it's like we are using 2 actions, just as if we were doing a 2-action issued directive, but instead of it being us doing it, it's one of our allies doing it. So yeah, basically we're still spending 2 actions to do a 2-action lead by action, but we're letting one of our allies do it. Like, you know, an operative or somebody else, like a Solarian, somebody who has a really sick attack rather than us, who presumably doesn't have the most sickest attack in the game. And thus you can literally go, cool, I don't need to roll dice anymore. You guys go do it, which is fine. If you're in that style of play, you'll love this. This is very warlord coded. Again, you know, we had the lazy lord. Now we have the lazy boy. Oh, we call it the lazy boy. Like it's like lazy boy, but with like a V. Lazy boy. Lazy boy. Get them. When you get them, by the way, the feat is called get them. The core class ability is called get M, which is a slang abbreviation of them. You can choose any number of enemies within range instead of a single target. Okay, cool. So now instead of picking one person, it's everybody. So basically it's just everybody gets the bonus to attack. Everybody gets the bonus to damage. You still only get to spend a strike on one person, but now that damage bonus and that attack bonus applies basically to everybody on the battlefield. So instead of just get one person, it's get all the people. All right, we got 2 level 20 abilities. Endlessly adaptive. When you gain skill feats using your adaptive talent, remember by this level, I think our adaptive talent is giving us 3 or 4 skill feats that we can change at the beginning of every long preparation or daily preparation. We get 2 additional skill feats. So now we're up to like 5 or 6. In addition, you can adapt to the day's challenges by spending 10 minutes to plan. When you take 10 minutes to plan, you can reselect the feats chosen with your adaptive talents as if you've made daily preparations. You cannot trade out feats if they have limited use abilities and you've already used them for that day. So basically, we can get whatever skill feats we want with 10 minutes, and we get 2 additional ones at will. So at this level, if you're level 20 and you're still relying on skill feats, God help you. But if you really want to do it, knock yourself out. You are capable of basically getting any skill feat in the game. How powerful that is, well, it depends on the skill feat, I guess. Lastly, our other level 20 option is True Leader. You've worked with your team for so long that you've learned to convey orders with but a glance, a single word, or the tiniest flick of your hand, or suitable appendage. Once per turn, you can issue a 1 active Envoy directive as a free action, and this directive doesn't count towards the total number of directives issued this turn. Remember, we can only issue 1 directive per turn. So this means at level 20, we can issue a directive as a 1 action for free, and then we can issue another directive, either as a 1 or a 2 action. So we'll basically be able to give our party, we'll be able to stack directives finally at level 20 and do the other one for free, which is exactly what we're going to take. And you're 99% of the time, 95% of players are going to take True Leader, because being able to stack directives is going to be insane and crazy and lead to like probably some wombo combos. Not to mention just insane action economy, depending on which one you're doing. Hey, everybody move and everybody attack. Like, it's just going to be like some insane over the top thing. The only thing you're probably going to be limited by is like people that some of them require reactions. So you're not going to be able to stack those up too well. Yeah, so that is the Envoy. I'm not going to lie. I like this class a little less than I like the first 3. It's very cool. It combines elements of the rogue, elements of the bard, elements of the noble, elements of the thing. It just, some of the abilities feel a little too piezoed razor to me. Now, I still think the class, in my opinion, is like a solid B+. Like, if I was in a different mood, a better mood, I might even give it an A-. It is, I think, a very solid class, and I would be happy to. And again, not every class can be an A, nor, I mean, should have been. It's just the design of it. Unfortunately, this is an area of the game where Paizo has historically been very, very hesitant to give people, especially when it comes to healing, quote-unquote, free healing, in a game where healing oftentimes feels very free anyways, especially outside of combat. It's not even healing. It's true. It's mostly temporary hit points. So I feel like they should have been more freeing with some of those elements. That being said, I love the directives system. That system is awesome. It's an A. I love it. That's really cool. I like that a lot of the ribbon abilities don't feel like they're costing the class anything. And I like that the class is primarily, a skill class, but it's got a lot of really neat commander warlord abilities in combat. So it's this cool mixture of like the skill focus of the rogue, the party buffing of the bard, and sort of the party war leader of the commander, I think it's a very solid B. Like I said, B+. In another world, if I was feeling differently or whatever, maybe an A-. But it's still a really fun, cool class, and I like this class so much better than the traditional rogue skill monkey. I love that they split Operative and Envoy into 2 different classes. I always felt like those 2 things were sort of weirdly at odds with one another. And I like that this class's thing is like, no, I have a bunch of skills, and then I'm not like a death blender. I'm a very skilled person who leads, and I show off by example. And I think that's really, really, really neat. I have not seen the final version of the commander. I own Battlecry, but I haven't actually cracked it open yet. I only know the original commander from the playtest. But yeah, now it's focused on skill feats. I don't want to say it's focused on skill feats, but I obviously have a very I'm kind of down on skill feats. I don't think that they're the coolest, most useful or effective thing in the game. So I'm not a big fan of them. And also I think it's a little strange. Your character isn't magical. And some of the skill feats like multilingual and stuff like that let you like pick up lores and languages like with 10 minutes. And so it's kind of like, my character's not magical. So what is going on here? Like, how come I can speak this language right now? And how come I have all this lore right now? But I don't know. The other thing is, I don't mind the once around directives. I think that makes actually kind of interesting. I think it'd be kind of lame if you did that. But the long cooldown abilities are constraining. Once an hour, once a day. I feel like that's just too constraining because of the way that people play. And it encourages a weird type of game where it's like if you fight 5 fights and each one's on a different day, it's really different than if you fight 5 fights in the same day. And in a game like Pathfinder 2, I don't like that distinction. I don't like that is a distinction that we have to make, you know? I mean, I guess if you space Googled it, I mean, that's fair. So overall, I think the class is really good. I just don't think it has some of the classic issues that I sometimes have with some of these, you know, Paizo designs, which is, you know, they're really concerned about the math and the balance, especially when it comes to handing out bonuses and being able to do things on reprete. And so again, it's not necessarily my absolute favorite class that we've been through so far. But again, I think I like it a lot more. I like a lot more than the rogue. I like a lot more than the investigator. The bard is in such a weird place in PF2. I like it better than the bard. And again, I'm not as familiar with the final version of the commander, but it's definitely very warlord coded from 4E, and I obviously think that's one of the best classes that ever existed in the game. So from that perspective, I think it's great, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to play that class and just be like the kind of super support character, lazy lord, like you go get him, get that one. I'll strike right now, but that's only because I'm low level. At higher levels, I won't even have to do this anymore. I'll let you can go lead him. I trust you. You got it. Go get him. That's great. That's actually kind of fun. That's really fun. So yeah, Envoy and Mystic locked down. So I'm sorry, Envoy and Operative locked down. So now we only have 2 to go. We have Mystic and Soldier. And of course, remember in our last stream, you guys did unlock that goal. So our next stream will be Mystic and Soldier. And because it's fun to keep it in Starfinder week, and because I'm going to be going to PAX next week, we will probably do a bonus stream. Maybe we didn't reach our tip goal, so it might be Tuesday, which is our normal next stream when we do that, and we'll try to do Mystic or thing. But there's always a chance that I might stream on a Sunday or something like that, in which case I'll fit it in. But regardless of whether we do it Sunday or whatever, we'll try to lock it in before that. Does directive strike work with area weapons? I didn't see anything that noted that it wouldn't work with an area weapon. Also, there's nothing called directive strike. I think you mean get him, but now to be fair, you only get the bonus against that target, Hardrick, and you only get the damage bonus against that enemy. So even if they are attacking with area of effects, they're not getting any bonus to their attacks against that attack or enemy. So, and apparently area weapons don't even make strikes. So there you go. But yeah. So I think it's very cool, and I think there's a lot of interesting choices here. And again, I like that we have we kind of have a charisma class, we have our wisdom class in the Mystic, we have our dexterity class in the Operative, we have our strength class in the Solarian. They have a class that is a key stat of con. Remember, we always talked about making the fighter have a key stat of con so that the fighter's skill bonus wasn't broken. And then the Witch Warper is int or charisma, but in my mind it's really just int. But they gave it charisma. But you can consider it the int one. But anyways, very clean, 6 classes, 6 stats. I love the simplicity of that. So that's a cool design. I mean, I know that there's a couple more classes than playtest. For Bob is playing a mechanic in Smith's campaign. But yeah, very cool. And I'm enjoying these classes a lot. I mean, so far we have 3 A's and 1 B+, almost an A-. So that's a really great track record. So we got 2 more to go, Mystic and Soldier. And we'll see how they hold up and as we go through this whole process. So again, thank you for everybody who came out today and supported us. Thank you to Mr. Rakzinski. Thank you to Philip for the super chat, Logan for the super chat, Hachukin for the super chat for a pizza or PDF, my choice. I really appreciate that. Thank you to everybody who is not being mean to me in YouTube for posting a video saying I was disappointed that Critical Role is going with D&D over Daggerheart. Although apparently right now Brandon Lee Mulligan and Matt Mercer alive. Maybe that's why we don't have as many people watching. Any case, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know. I am still on the fence about how. I don't know how we're going to handle it next year, but I kind of would rather Northern Reaches not have space stuff, and I would rather do a separate space game. But I don't think we have enough players to really make it make sense that we have 2 different PF2 games, because it just doesn't really work out for the total number of players playing. But I would prefer that. Yeah, where are we at? We're at we're at like almost 3,500 views on the Critical Role or Critical Role choosing. Actually, it's 4,000 views. So yeah, maybe rotating seasons is not the worst idea, Karama. Or maybe we can do like a 6-month season and a 6-month season. That might be kind of cool too as well. Anyways, people are very opinionated. Obviously, people have their definite feelings about Daggerheart, but people have their feelings about Starfinder too, and whether they want space peanut butter in their fantasy jelly. So yeah. Thaddeus, what other games might your group want to play on an actual play? Well, it depends on what you mean by my group. If you mean like my home group that I play games with, I mean they're pretty much up for anything. They are really excited about Daggerheart. But I'm sure they would be down to play Fabula Ultima. We were gonna play Fabula Ultima. I think they would be convinced to play. Well, okay. So you mean like on the channel, or like at our home game? Like for example, everyone in my group really loves Legend of the Five Rings, but none of us really want to play Legend of the Five Rings on the channel because we don't want to get like immediately canceled. So there's that. But like One Ring, Fabula Ultima, let's see, One Ring, Fabula, Avatar, Legends. These are all games that I know that have kind of come up and stuff like that. No one's really seemed too excited about Draw Steel. I probably could convince them to be interested in Warhammer Old World because they really do love old Warhammer. They're more 40K people mostly, but there's a long standing love of us in Warhammer Fantasy as well. Thaddeus says, "Oh yeah, L5R is straight community strike bait." Yeah. Why would you get canceled playing Legend of the Five Rings? The answer is because Legend of the Five Rings 5th edition, in particular, the one from Fantasy Flight Games, is a game of it's got suicide, and it's not like the adventures in Rokugan, which is very whitewashed and very simple. It's about like classism and intense racism. It's about literally disrespecting. I mean, even the term that they use in the Legend of the Five Rings book for the lowest class, which is called Eta, which is the Hinin, the non-people, is like a current slur word in Japan. And that's the word they use in the book. So like using that word, I just used it, I guess, but using it in the context of calling someone that in the game could be construed as making a slur, talking about suicide in a ennobling way, honoring someone's seppuku, could be seen in a very negative light. The real game kind of uses a fantasy version of real life, Taoist beliefs, Zen Buddhist beliefs, and sort of makes a fantasy spin on it. There's a lot of references to social discrimination, racial discrimination, bigotry, and it's kind of in core to the game. And to a certain extent, it's also kind of the core, with the core to the way that, we kind of play the game. We kind of lean into the historical context. And I'm completely aware that that is maybe not something that everybody is comfortable with to that respect. I understand intro neurotic. I get it. And you're a liberal I'm a liberal snowflake. Actually, I'm a liberal brick. So, and again, for those of you who aren't fully aware of this, but like I don't even know where it is. Did I like throw it away? Anyways, they made a 5e version of Legend of the Five Rings. It's called Adventures in Rokugan. And they like literally got rid of like they got rid of seppuku, you know. They got rid of, you know, they don't call it bushido. You know, they got rid of the tenets of bushido. They replaced them with something different. So it's you know, the game has a sidebar about how like you shouldn't talk about suicide and make it seem like it's a good thing. And so it's very different from the way that our experience with Legend of the Five Rings has been for the past 25 years and the way that we would interact with that medium, you know. We have done 2 Pathfinder 2 actual plays and a Root actual play. We've also done like some one-shots that usually have been for the patrons as well. So, in any case, yes, exactly, mind blown. It's something that's okay being brought to a table of your close friends who have a long OOC conversation and understanding with, not necessarily West March. And to be clear, mind blown, we have that problem in Northern Reaches, right? Where you have 40 or 50 or 60 people all playing in a game, and what's good for one person is not good for another person. And even though you might say, oh, well, that game wasn't for you. And then suddenly it's like, well, it's a community game. Shouldn't all games in the community be available and opening to everyone? And just the fact that people are having a conversation about a certain type of game may make other people uncomfortable. And how do you draw that line, and where do you draw that line? Now, well, Torchbearer isn't an actual play. It's an actual play, because Torchbearer is literally just me running Torchbearer for patrons and friends who are, you know, we're just happen to be online, and we're hitting record. It's not me trying to create it for like a production value with, you know, interacting with tips and goals and trying to speak to the audience. It's literally just me running a game and hitting record. So it is on the channel, but it is not technically an actual play. Oh yes, I said there's some one shots that are available. Bob's Birthday Bash. We played Dungeon World. There's Dread in the Dark and Dragons, which is Blades in the Dark mixed with Dungeons and Dragons mixed with the Dread game. Correct. I just want to make sure you didn't think that you counted. I just wanted to be very clear. You know, your number one key, Boothby, would have been you're not being paid for it, so it's definitely not an actual play. I'm loving Starfinder, but it's making me want a remastered PF2 classes, but actually remastered. Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping the remastered of Pathfinder 2 would be. For sure. Any thoughts here at the end about Critical Role Campaign 4 being called a West Marches like game? Well, yes. I mean, if you mean by West Marches, which is what Ben Robbins meant, which is one GM who is running a game for a large group of people who play at different times and may be involved in different adventures. And, you know, this is where Gary Gygax's infamous, you know, timekeeping is of utmost important for the running of any successful campaign, any successful milieu. Because the idea was that you had, you know, 15, 20 players in your campaign, each playing a PC, and, you know, it was like an MMO, but there was only one GM, so they can obviously only run one game at a time. And so calling it a West Marches game, I think, is mostly appropriate. I think it's more appropriate calling that a West Marches game in the way that most people call West Marches game. People call Northern Reaches a West Marches game. I try to avoid using that nomenclature. Bob uses all the time. I said, Bob, it's not a West Marches. We have many GMs. It's definitely not West Marches. You know, Ben Robbins specifically made his about, you know, setting it on the edge and people going out and exploring, but that's not necessarily what it's even about. He was trying to replicate the old style of GMing, where you had one game master who ran their campaign and people came and went. Just whoever showed up that night, whoever showed up that day, whoever had a character who was active in the timeline and wasn't sort of locked out because their character had taken an adventure and was now kind of in the future and had to wait for time to catch up with them before they could adventure again. That was a thing. Some people even had multiple characters so that they could play if their one character was sort of locked in the future as you waited for time to catch up with them. That being said, I mean, again, look, I don't care what Critical Role does. I tried watching Age of Umbra. It was rough. I watched it more than I normally would have watched it because I was, interested in Daggerheart and I wanted to see how they were doing it. But it's just not my style. I don't like actual plays. Even when, I like running them because I like running games, but I don't want to watch other people play D&D. I want to play D&D. I mean, respect to people who do watch them. That's why we produce them. But they've never even been that successful for us. I'm just more of like, selfishly like, man, come on, like, you got a new game. Why don't you just like, and they're like, people are like, oh, they're going to make a post of, they're going to do some other side games about it. That's respect. I'm glad they're not literally throwing it away. But whatever their Thursday night marquee flagship Critical Role Campaign 4 game is the primary emphasis of their thing. So that's where I stand for that. As for the style of it, makes sense to me because what you're going to get is 3 campaigns of one. You're going to get a sort of a more traditional campaign, a combat-focused campaign, and you're going to get more of like a intrigue, talky campaign. And that way, viewers who like that style of play, someone who likes it all will watch all. But somebody who goes, I only care about the combat, or I only care about the talky talk, they're going to watch that episode, and they can skip the other episodes without feeling like they're missing out. Also, presumably, those players will be sort of keyed and coded into that style of play. So maybe it'll be a better quality overall. It also means, which is another thing I thought of, is I know that these Critical Role people do not want to keep doing this. So this way, they each only need to be in a third of the episodes. And that gives them a time to go do other projects and run their businesses and spend their millions of dollars. And they don't have to just keep playing RPGs. Instead, they can go do other things. And so by bringing everybody in, including their side characters, and then having Brennan Lee Mulligan be the GM, now someone like Marisha or Matt or whatever, Travis or whatever, Laura, they, instead of playing in, let's say, 120 episodes, they only need to play in 30 or 40. So they're literally playing in third as many episodes, which means their requirements on their schedule is reduced by a third, or reduced to a third, I should say. Yeah, Thad. I mean, obviously, when I started the Torchbearer campaign, we're running 2 campaigns for 2 groups of patrons, I was working. And my schedule was sort of, I only had the weekends because during the week I had my normal streaming, my job, trying to maintain some level of social and physical and mental health using hobbies and activities and gym and friends and social circles and racquetball and all that other stuff. Now my situation is kind of different because I'm not working. And so I have to kind of go back and revisit that. And obviously it's only been a couple months since I lost my job. And it was a really crazy, hectic time because, my dad had died and I lost my job and we had the foster dogs and I didn't know if I was going to, be able to afford anything, blah, blah, blah. And then I was still kind of getting over last year where I had the fire and the PTSD. And so it's been kind of crazy and hectic with me trying to figure out. And then it was con season. I don't know if this is apparent to you all, but I've been to PAX East where I worked the booth for Roll for Combat. I've been to Origins, which, was fun, but, I spent a lot of money at Origins. I bought $800 of t-shirts. I spent $250 on comped meals. I spent, like it was a business venture for me. I got to meet with people and play with people and talk to people, and that was fun. But for the most part, it was a business venture. So that was Origins. So I've been to PAX, Origins. Then I went to Gen Con, which again was mostly business. I didn't really play in any games at Gen Con. Not really. It was all meetings and working the booth a bit at Roll for Combat, who again paid for my badge and put me up at a hotel. And now I'm going to PAX West up in Seattle next week. Again, it's going to be me and Steven. We're running the booth for Roll for Combat. So again, it's kind of more of a working trip. And then at the end, in a couple months, I'm going to PAX Unplugged. And again, in the same situation, to sort of network, meet with people, try to expand the channel, make connections, and do some working on the booth to sort of pay my way, if you will. So I've been really busy this summer with all these conventions on top of trying to run everything. And then this Daggerheart game dropped, and I really wanted to talk about it because I was really excited about it. And quite frankly, since I didn't have a job anymore, I was kind of like, maybe this is a niche that I can kind of carve out for myself because I've always sort of been dabbling around in all these different games and never really focusing on one. And that used to be Pathfinder 2. But Pathfinder 2, you know, it kind of lost its interest for me after playing it for so many years. I'm not lying. Like if I sat there and played Daggerheart for 3-4 years straight and made videos about Daggerheart for 3 or 4, I would probably be very bored of that as well. And so it just didn't feel like I had something. So now suddenly there was this new game. People are excited about it. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I can, you know, really focus on that. And we made a lot of videos about it. And people were like, oh, you're the Daggerheart guy. To the point where like, you know, people like Spencer Stark and stuff like that knew who I was. So that was cool. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what Knights of Last Call is and what we're doing in this new world order of me not working / trying to make my living as a professional YouTuber. Yeah. So the other thing, Don Poke, I hate the way that they run Planet Critical Role. 1 player, 7 players, 1 GM, 7 players, kill myself. I think there's 12 players, right? Maybe. So if their 3 groups are 4, 4, and 4, great. Awesome. Would Daggerheart have worked for West March's style? I don't know. We'll find out. You know, it started as a joke, as they often do, but now people are like, Dagger reaches? When? ? Dagger reaches? And now that Critical Role has fumbled the ball, and they have not given people this great gift of Daggerheart for their main campaign, I feel more compelled than ever to create a mega game for Daggerheart so that the people who cry out for hearting the dagger have a place to play. John, I'm aware. I'm aware that the Gygax quote about accurate timekeeping is specifically about that style of play. It's specifically any style of play. According to Gygax, that was the only style of play. And when Ben Robbins wrote his original West Marches essay, he was specifically referring to that style of play of Gary Gygax, which he had never experienced and had a desire to do so, especially in a world with people who had very, very variable schedules. In fact, sometimes I wish I was running a more West Marches style game because my friends have such variable schedules. The problem I have is I don't have 15 or 20 players. I have like 6. So when half of them can't make it, or 4 of them can't make it, it's only 2 people. People are weird, Copper Bent, you know, it's crazy. I have no, you know, I have my suspicions. I have my thoughts. I've heard rumors. I could see that Wizards of the Coast might be very interested in Critical Role playing with the 2024 rules. For sure. Yes, I am going to PAX U. I will be there in a kind of officially there to work of, you know, the booth type role, but yeah, I will be at PAX U. So that'd be cool. Sweet. Yeah, we'll hang out. Any update on Duality Digest and how we might contribute? Yeah, so the answer is it's absolutely something I want to do, but I am just way over my head in terms of like trying to get everything done, and I'm only capable of doing so much at once. And so like my primary focus has been on streaming a lot, continuing to, you know, talk and you know, because again, I would say on a typical week, you know, I'm spending 15, 20 hours or like 15 hours streaming, and then I probably spend another like 5 hours doing administrative tasks. So it's like 20 hours. And then I probably spend another 30 hours or so like on the Discord talking to patrons, sometimes with just like, you know, issues, but also most of the time it's just engaging in conversations. Part of the reason people join the Patreon is so that they can, you know, participate in conversation with me. So I'm probably spending between 40 to 50 hours a week on the channel. So I just need to figure out a way that I can restructure that and not drop the ball on other things that I'm doing in order to try to make and do something that may not actually make me any money and may require me actually a lot of money, cost me a lot of money, but also make it high quality so it doesn't suck. So yeah. Jackal says we need to use the Dagger Knight's actual play setting as the Dagger Reaches campaign frame. I would not do that because the actual play setting is not going to be designed to be codified to be played in a mega game sense. I think you need to design the setting to better accommodate the mega game component of it. I do, Copper Blint, but the good news is a lot of times the games that appeal to some people don't appeal to other people. I mean, put quite simply, Copper Blint, the Knights of Last Call Patreon has 545 active paying members, and probably only about 50 of them are active, semi-active in Northern Reaches. So that's less than 10% of the entire population of the entire server anyways. So I have technically 505 people who aren't playing in any mega game and will never play in any mega game, to be honest with you. But so, I mean, unless it's literally the same people, no, I'm not worried about it. There's a lot of people who would love to play in a mega game, but they have zero interest in playing Pathfinder 2. So they don't play Northern Reaches. So yeah, say Mebaman says, yeah, I lurk. You know, we have, and that's fine. We have people who lurk, who never post, who don't really talk. They read, they don't really add a whole lot. We have members of the Patreon who aren't even members of our Discord. They join, they give me money every month, they support what I do. Sometimes they send me a nice message, but for the most part, they don't really engage. They just like the videos. They like to watch them on VODs, and you know, they're happy to throw $5 or $10 a month my way to help support the channel. Like Roll for Combat. Yeah, Roll for Combat gets plenty in return. But and some of us say way too much. Yes, exactly, Karama. But yeah, so again, I think there's differing groups. I mean, we definitely have the idea of these sort of seasonal overlaps and things of that, which I think is great. And we should look into that. But I do think that they kind of appeal and apply to different people, you know? So yeah, I mean, we're also to a community of like-minded gamers who try to support each other and enjoy each other's hobbies and celebrate our differences and just support each other. That's why there's so many people come to our channel. I actually, one of my favorite cancellation messages of all time, somebody joined the Discord or joined the Patreon, and then they quit the Patreon like an hour and a half later. And when they quit the Patreon, whenever you quit the Patreon, there's an option to give an exit interview, and you can just list why you left. Most of the time, to be fair, most of the time the reason is, and people might be being nice. They say financial reasons, and they usually say something like, my financial situation changed. That's like a default answer, which usually means, you know, money's tight or, you know, whatever, something. But sometimes I get something different. And I got one that said, the Discord has too many channels. And that's my favorite cancellation message of all time. And their reason was that we had all these channels in there about, like, you know, people talking about movies, anime, video games, people sharing their hobbies, their artwork, people sharing their photography, people, you know, people talking about music, and they didn't like that. And I think that's cool. I think it's what makes us more than just a group of gamers. It makes us a community, which I really like, you know. Well, I try very hard to make sure that, you know, myself and the mods try very hard to make sure that I don't force people to agree, but you do have to be respectful. And if people start getting on a line, I will act punitively and swiftly, and without mercy, basically. So, and we've mostly avoided problems over the years that we've been doing this, believe it or not. So, I think it also starts here at the YouTube channel. This kind of channel, this kind of content, my personality, I think it attracts a certain type of, dare I say, balanced and you know, a balanced person who has a relatively open and fair mind, and, you know, has opinions, but is willing to listen as much as they're willing to talk. And so, yeah. So Damien's one of our longtime mods, Pawn No Longer, on the Discord channel, and, you know, he's probably only had to mod someone like punitively once, you know. That's a whole separate story. You know, put that up there with Battle Cry, put that up there with Duality Digest, put that up there with Dragon Tide, put that up there with the Eldamon theme song, put that up there with Boothby's Call of Cthulhu one shot, the Discord revamp, and what hot message what hot fire, dumpster fire that's going to be if and when we finally do that. Clearly. Right, August 20, at this point. Oh, at this point. Oh my God, August 22nd is tomorrow. Holy shit, never mind. We got to do something. Oh, tomorrow's Friday. Oh yeah, there was supposed to be a Candela Obscura. No, but here's how you know Candela Obscura, no one cares about it, because there was a goal for us to do a Candela Obscura thing, which filled, and we never did it, and no one cares. That's how you know. That's the true meaning of Candela Obscura. Right, and I have no idea what we're doing tomorrow, George. So there was like, I don't know if there's like two of us. Bob sounds like he's out. Kaz is out. Tim is out. So is it me and you? D&D put out a UA that it was totally Dark Sun without naming it Dark Sun. Interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, John, I've said many times before that the thing that I am the most proud of about this entire journey that I've been on has not been anything related to the YouTube channel or the streams. It is absolutely the creation of that community. And I think it has really created some really strong bonds between people. There are folks who were with us at the very beginning who formed friendships. They eventually left the Patreon for a variety of reasons. Maybe could have been cost, could have been just feeling like they were interested in different games. Maybe they didn't have time for it or whatever. Or maybe somebody pissed them off, whatever. And they left. It's fair, fine, it happens. But some of those people are still friends, and they now still game to each other. They even meet up at conventions and stuff for each other. They are no longer part of the Knights of Last Call official community, but those friendships have sort of persisted outside of that. And I think that's really cool. So, anyways, enough jibber jabbering. I also want to go to Game Hole Con and Gary Con, and so a bunch of other stuff. So, supposedly I'm going to Gary Con next year. I've never been. It's been on my bucket list since they kicked it off after Gary's death. It's not even that far. Like Lake Geneva's not that bad of, Wisconsin, Milwaukee's not a bad flight at all. Chicago's not a bad flight. Hell, I could drive to Chicago in about 6 maybe hours. So I think Lake Geneva's only like maybe less than an hour outside of Chicago to the northwest. Anyways, but it'll be cool. I'm looking forward to it and get to hang out with people. Apparently I have my ticket. So there you go. Look, at this point, it's Daddy Glicker, all right? You know what, Stephen? Mark may have gone to college, but you gained a new son. Dad, can we go to the con? Oh, yeah. And Kendall, people think people were accusing me of being exact. Well, to be fair, half the people who complain about my video on either the comments or Reddit, especially Reddit, clearly did not watch my video, and they clearly have no idea who I am and what my relationship with Daggerheart is. Like, there are a bunch of people who are like, somebody who doesn't even know anything about the game is just making a big deal about it to get clicks, and I'm like, okay, you clearly have no idea who I am. But I don't want to over exaggerate. But yeah, I don't want Daggerheart to get Candela obscured. I don't want it to get obscured, right? To be obscured, which is to say a game comes out and, it gets like one kind of push from the company that built it, and then it gets quietly swept under the rug and never talked about again by anybody, ever. So I'd hate for that to happen to Daggerheart. So I don't think it will, but, them not going with Daggerheart is definitely not a good thing for the popularity of the game. You could say it's not terrible. It's not going to kill the game. Sure. But it's definitely not the best thing that could have happened. So that's where I'm kind of at that. Get your mind out of the gutter, sir. I'll have you know that Mr. Stephen Glicker is a very, very generous man who takes care of his employees and takes care of the people around him very generously. I saw that man whip out his credit card at pretty much every opportunity to pick up the check for pretty much every opportunity where it was presented to him, and do so with nary a complaint. He's a very generous man. Yes, it's neutral at best, and it's bad at worst. So somewhere in between those is usually where we're going to end up. All right, everybody. Well, enough talking about that stuff. Back to the grindstone. Tomorrow, Friday, I don't know what we're doing. I know a couple people are out, so our usual game is probably on hold, which is our Pathfinder Starfinder game. Maybe we'll play 5e Rapanathuk, but it's also possible that there may only be 2 players, so potentially we might be doing a board game. I don't know what's going on. We might just call it a night, as we do sometimes. Other than that, I go to PAX next week, so maybe there'll be a stream for PAX. I don't know. Maybe we can do a one final stream before I go. We can have a tip goal to see if Derek can schlep his camera gear across the country from Ohio all the way up to Pacific Northwest. Do a stream up there. Other than that, we hope to see you next time. Remember, you can check us out at patreon.com/nightsoflastcall. You can also support us on Twitch for free. You can join us over at twitch.tv/nightsoflastcall. You can use your Amazon Prime to subscribe to us for free. You get one of those every month, or you can throw a Prime sub to us way. But I would recommend, if you're going to spend real money on us, join the Patreon, at least for a month. Check it out. See if it's see if you like it. See if it's your deal. Maybe get involved in some games or meet some people, talk about stuff that you were interested in. Maybe it'll be a place for you. We'd love to see you over there. So I'm not sure when we're going to be streaming next, but when that does happen, we will catch you then next time on Knights of Last Call. Peace out, everybody. Good night.